Commissioner Ye may be a few minutes late, but it's 7 o'clock. So Casey, if you would, can you call the roll and check for quorum?
Yes, I can. We'll call it at 7. Chair Daly.
Yes, here.
Vice Chair Morris.
Here.
Commissioner Ye. Absent for now. Commissioner Corrigan.
Here.
Commissioner Valadez.
Here.
And Commissioner Wang.
Here.
We do have a quorum.
Great. All right, so let's see, the first item. There we go, flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Now we've got public comments on items not on the agenda. Do we have any residents or other members of the public that wanted to make comments?
We do have a hand raised.
Wonderful. Well, if it's one, then we'll just go for 3 minutes.
Give me just a second to get back to the correct timer.
Mhm.
Okay. And Roberta, I'm going to allow you to talk, and then I will share your time once we know you can speak.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
We can.
Yes. 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 So this will probably take less than a minute. I went to the Senior Commission meeting, and I just wanted to recommend to the Parks and Rec Commission meeting that it would probably be a really good idea for you to have a joint meeting with the Senior Commission, because I think you have a lot of overlap and a lot of concerns that are mutual concerns. So that is just my suggestion. Hopefully you'll be able to, put that on your work plan or set up a meeting. Because obviously, you've got the seniors at Hillview Community Center and at Graham Park, and Chris Nagaro, who is the chair, who's a very awesome lady. So I just was thinking that that would be a good idea. Thank you very much for considering. Bye.
Wonderful. Thanks, Roberta. All right. Do we have any other comments for items not on the agenda?
We do not.
Okay, so now we'll go to our items for consideration. The first one being the approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of February 9th. Does anybody have any concerns or corrections that they want to see in those minutes? All right, hearing none, then I'll ask for a motion to approve those minutes.
So moved.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, John.
No, not at all, Commissioner Valadez.
Okay, I've got Janine, I've got Commissioner Valadez with the motion to approve, and I've got Commissioner Corrigan with the second.
Yes.
All in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
All right.
Okay,
I have that as unanimous.
yes. The next item for action is going to be to review the proposed Parks and Recreation facility projects for the 5-year capital improvement program and forward the recommended priorities to the Finance Department. So let me take a moment here and kind of frame this up for us if I can, and hopefully Director Legge will correct me when I inevitably goof it up, but we are not advancing recommendations to council with this particular action item. The way this is going to move through our process is we're going to take a look at what staff is reporting to us and what they believe are the priorities, or should be the priorities, based on what council has already established in their retreat and based on staff resources, head count, budget, so on and so forth. When we review this and either recommend changes or accept it as it is, it's going to go then to the Finance Commission to get their input as well. So just, Director Legge, is that a fair assessment of the process?
Yes, it will not go to the Finance Commission. It will go to the Finance Department. So basically,
Department.
yeah,
I'm
the
sorry.
staff, the
My,
finance staff.
my mistake.
No,
Commissioner
no
Corrigan.
Yeah, Chair Daly, I'd like to recuse myself from this discussion, given that Halsey House is listed on that work plan, and because of the geographic proximity of my home.
Okay.
So,
I don't know if you need to recuse yourself from the entire discussion. Can we
Only
get
the
a?
Halsey House discussion, but you can
Yeah.
discuss all other priorities and.
So what I'll do is I'll sort of pause the discussion when we come to, if we're going to deal with Halsey House, and give you an opportunity to recuse. And all right.
sounds good.
So
Thank you.
With that, Director Legge, I'll turn it over to you to go ahead and present the staff recommendations, please.
Thank you and good evening, Chair Daly and fellow commissioners. Donna Legge, Recreation Community Services Director. With me this evening to present and discuss these items and answer any questions is Director Manny Hernandez from the Maintenance Services Department. He and I work closely together in creating a recommendation that we think is feasible and in line with the outcome of the retreat discussion that Council had in January. So first, I wanted to just highlight some of the items that we both laid out in the staff report. So if you can bear with me as I share the screen. Okay, where are you? All right, I have to. Try this again. There we go. I'm gonna make this a little bit larger than life. Okay, so I just wanted to highlight that this information we shared when we highlighted at the last meeting, the discussion at the retreat. Basically, the suggested schedule is based on the COVID-19 transition, available funding, resources, capacity of staff, and the following CIP projects that were identified at the retreat. So basically, these are divided into 3 sections. One is the current fiscal year, which ends in June 30th. The 5-year CIP, which is valid July 1, 22 through June 30th of 2027. It feels like it's so far away. And then the unscheduled. So those items that are highlighted are specifically those projects that we think are of interest to the commission as it relates to your roles and responsibilities. So there was an interest to mothball the Halsey House between now and June 30th. And then unfortunately, these cross over to page breaks or 1-page break. So the 5-year CIP, not in any particular order except for MSC. The highlight of the discussion at the retreat is that they want to create a functional, efficient, and nice workplace for our employees, whether they're employees at the fire station, at MSC, City Hall, and police facility. And so I placed MSC at the very top of the list because that's related to the comfort and efficiency of our employees. So otherwise, there is no real priority, just that they're all suggested and recommended during the 5-year period. So we have the park playground ADA item, Grant Park Senior Center, the garden house, the underground facilities, and the caretaker house, which is in Redwood Grove. So the next chart that was provided, we basically took all the playgrounds including the fitness facility at the Hillview baseball field. And we put them in the order that they were installed. So the top one being the eldest one in 1988 was installed, and through 2018. So basically looking at this chart, all of our playground facilities and the fitness equipment, except for the bottom two, are all past their life expectancy. So, which is about 10 to 15 years. And then as you can see, we've split up the cost estimates between rubberized surfacing, and then the playground structure replacement itself, and then the far right column is a total cost. So we're looking at $4.1 million over a span of not necessarily the next 5 years, but definitely over the next 10 years in terms of replacement. And as I mentioned at the previous meeting, the information that the Jedi subcommittee had created for the purpose of looking at access elements for our playgrounds, all that information we have, and we will work very closely along the way as we implement those things. So now what I'm going to share with you is the proposed CIP projects for year 1, year 2, and then we categorize year 3, 4, and 5 all together. So bear with me.
So
Yes,
Director
sir.
Legge, before you take this next step, I just
Sure.
want to get a word in to about process here. What we'll do is after staff has made their report, then we'll have questions and an opportunity for everybody to weigh in. And if we want, if we think that the priorities need to be modified or what have you, there'll be an opportunity to make motions in that regard. But let's go ahead and hold comments, questions, motions, etc., until the staff is done with their report, and then we'll get into it a little bit. Okay.
Thank you. All right, sharing the screen. So in your packets, staff presented to you what we are proposing for year 1, for year 2, and this is based on the discussions at the retreat. And then year 3, 4, and 5 is a list of the remaining projects. I would like to say that all the playgrounds are in the order of age, right? So what's the highest and lowest, with the exception of the playground, the fitness equipment is down here, right here. And as you can see, we split up the design and public process versus construction. So I'm going to give you an example. So in year 1, the Hillview Dog Park Phase 1 includes us hiring a consultant, working with staff to come up with a concept that will then be taken to the Parks and Recreation Commission, that will then facilitate a public process, and then the commission will make recommendations based on a design that has already been completed by a consultant. So that is basically phase 1. Phase 2 would be construction in year 2. Also in year 1, we had selected Shout Park being the oldest that has been installed and the most we feel is being used. And there's two age groups that it affects in Shout Park. So that would be phase 1 in year 1, and phase 2 construction would be in year 2. We will mothball the Halsey House in year 1 and continue to mothball until which time the council decides they would like to do something different for the Halsey House. And then also in year 2, we will do the public process and input on design by a consultant for McKenzie Park. So we're staggering the Hillview Dog Park versus the McKenzie Dog Park by a year. And as a reminder, And Manny can address this if you have any questions. He is in the process of getting estimates to put the fencing up now in both parks while the design process and public input process will be conducted. Are there any questions about year 1 or year 2?
So, Director Legge, when we start our work plan effort, which is the next action item on the agenda, we'll see what the implications are for our activities. And there's some connection here, right?
Correct.
Okay. Vice Chair Morris.
Thank you. I do have a question. So McKenzie Dog Park, I think, is going to be a pilot program to begin with. And so I'm not quite sure all the details about it, but if that fails for some reason, I would assume it's not going to be in year 2. And do you have an alternative that you're thinking would go in place of that?
Vice Chair Morris, this is we're kind of giving our blessing to the CIP recommendations here. So I think what you're talking about is kind of tactical. And I'm not sure that's, I mean, I suppose if you wanted to add another recommendation that there's a cultivated backup plan, I suppose it could be germane to this, but otherwise I'm not sure how it pertains to these recommendations. Do you want to clarify and see if, or?
Well, it's just that simple. It's that if it doesn't work, does staff have another thing that they'd like to see go in that slot? Because we don't know 100% if that's moving forward or not at this point. So I just wanted to see what the perhaps alternative, maybe it's just to wait and see.
Director Legge?
Yes, my comment on that is it's not up to staff, it would be up to the council. And so it would be our job to present the results of the pilot to let them know what the status is and what our recommendations are. But we cross that bridge when we get to it.
Perfect, thanks.
All right, Commissioner Ye has joined. Commissioner Ye, we are reviewing the staff's CIP recommendations. These are the result of council's retreat and priority.
Oh yeah, Pete, I've been on for a while.
Okay.
I was just as a guest.
Okay, gotcha. All right, thank you. So do we have more questions for staff on these recommendations? We've got Commissioner Valadez. And then I'll get to Commissioner Corrigan.
A quick clarifying question on the chart, not this chart. You don't have to change the screen because I think the question is very simple. I just want to make sure. I was confused about this even at the city council meeting. When you categorize the items for the CIP with urgency and then the middle column was resource use, was that resource use, staff bandwidth, or community use?
Staff.
Okay, thank you. Good. Okay, so now to my next question. It's on the mothball item here on year 1, and then you have it again in year 2. Should we infer from that mothballing is an annual action? And if so, does that mean it's $250K per year?
I will ask Manny Hernandez to respond to that, but I believe that is correct for the next 5 years. Mr. Hernandez?
The mothballing is the $250 cost to actually do the mothballing. That's a construction cost. There will be a maintenance cost additional to that, but it will not be the $250,000.
Okay.
Commissioner
So
Corrigan.
And then my last question.
Sorry, go ahead, Commissioner Valadez. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Director Legge, were you going to say something else?
I was just gonna say.
Okay, my last question is. Go ahead.
It's okay, go ahead.
For the dog parks, I see that they're staggered. And that is due to staff resources to do it, or is there something financial? Is it more weighted towards financial considerations, or is it weighted towards head count, staff time considerations?
It's more to do a quality public input process, and hiring a consultant and working with staff to come up with design concepts takes time.
Okay, so there's no benefit from aggregating them, you know, economies of scale and all that kind of thing.
No.
What I can say to that though is the Hillview Phase 1, actually Hillview Phase 2 will start work on that because with Hillview, the location of the what will soon be the permanent dog park is currently occupied right now by the Friends of the Library. So that's actually going to stagger these naturally anyway. But yes, that is something that, as far as the public input, that will take some time.
Commissioner Corrigan.
I was just wondering if Director Lee or Director Hernandez, you can provide a little more feedback on the Grant Park kitchen electrical upgrades, because I know we had some public input on that prior to this meeting, and I know we had said in the past that was a fairly high priority, and I know it's now pushed out a couple of years. So could you share a little background, which I think we're aware of, but I think the public should be made aware as to why that's now been pushed out?
Yeah, before staff answers that question, I want to add my own interest to that, and I've expressed that as well. I think after we go through our questions and then we start to discuss this, I think we're very likely to have some interest. I know, at least on my part and potentially some other commissioners, to elevate this particular priority out of those out years. So perhaps Director Hernandez and Director Legge can, in response to Commissioner Corrigan and myself, you let us know what's going on with the facilities condition assessment and some of the other things around Grant Park.
Sure. The best I can tell you is the facility condition assessment. I will work with a project manager from the engineering department, and that has been the plan. The problem is it's a staffing issue right now. We've lost a lot of project managers, and based on the bandwidth that engineering has, we don't have anyone to take that. But the facilities assessment will be done first, and then we'll go from there.
When do you anticipate having the staff bandwidth to do that facilities condition assessment?
They currently need to hire project managers, so I'm not sure where they are in that process. I think that question would be better answered by either engineering director or HR. But I don't believe there's anybody anybody that's being interviewed for that process. So that process has to take its place.
I think we're going to come back to this when we get into the discussion. Commissioner Corrigan, do you feel like your question's been answered? Because I'm not super satisfied at the moment.
No, I agree, Chair Daly. I guess the sequencing. So does the facilities assessment need to be done before the upgrades can be done of the kitchen and electrical, which seems to be the real near-term ask from the community?
So Director Hernandez, we've had discussions with you before on this. It's fair to say that, yeah, the facilities condition assessment is sort of the first step, right? And then once you have a formal assessment of the facilities deficiencies, deferred maintenance, so on and so forth, then I suppose you'll probably start to look at what things can and should be done under the maintenance budget, and which things would be capital improvements and so forth. So, I know a lot is hanging on the electrical panel getting replaced and so forth, but can you just give us a thumbnail sketch of what the sequence of things would be? Not necessarily the timing, but just what order of events?
Well, the plan was originally to get this done, but I think in some council meetings and some discussions in the past, it's definitely been decided that the facilities assessment makes sense. If we do all the facilities, get that assessment done, it'll give us a better idea of the deficiencies. So that's where we are right now. So after that, sequencing that through is we will plan out the building upgrades on what's deficient, but also we'll work with the recreation department to find out exactly what is going in there, what is desired in those facilities. And I think Director Legge has talked about some master plans, either for just grant or the parks master plan. But with those ideas of what grant will be used for, that would probably give us a better idea of what we need to upgrade. Because right now we can spitball it and just say, okay, we'll upgrade the electrical. What does that mean? How much power do we need? Well, we need HVAC for the facilities and stuff like that. The facility assessment will tell us what we're lacking. And with working with that and recreation and their programming, it would probably be better. And that's what we had concluded. It would be best if we decide what's wrong with it, how we're going to go ahead and upgrade it, and then we can give the 220, the 440, whatever we need to do to that facility to make just the electrical, not mentioning some other things. So, but yeah, that's really the sequence of what we'll
If I could make a comment,
Please.
the chair. So I wanted to clarify that the master plan is specific to the outdoor landscape area and playground. The facilities assessment will include all of our facilities, Grant Park, kitchen, and classrooms, being all the interior will be a part of that assessment. So they're separated between the interior buildings versus the outdoor landscape area. So the master plan does not include the building. The building will be included as part of the assessment.
That helps a lot. I think I have a sense of this. Well, like I said, we're going to probably come back to this particular item in discussion after we handle everybody's clarification questions and so forth. Are there more questions for staff on this document? Vice Chair Morris.
Hi, I think I have a clarification question. I hope so. If not, just tell me, wait for the discussion time. It's about the facilities assessment. I just want to make sure that we're talking about the facility being Grant Park, not every single facility in the city that has to do with park.
No, that would be every facility that we have.
This is a really big undertaking then. So the Grant Park situation is part of this huge big picture.
Yes.
Okay, thanks. I just wanted to clarify that. Thanks.
Sure.
So Director Hernandez, you're saying that the city is going to undertake a facilities assessment on all city facilities? Or there's going to be a specific facilities assessment on Grant Park, but it would be either in sequence or in parallel with similar assessments of other facilities?
All of facilities. That's the facilities assessment. What the other thing that this does, if everyone can picture what this does too, is it gives council a good picture of all of our facilities and how we use them. And then they can help prioritize that. I'm not making any assumptions that council isn't going to focus on Grant Park, but something may come out of this where, the garden house may come to the top or something like that, because maybe it's low hanging fruit that we can just add an HVAC system or something like that. That's just an example. I'm just saying the greater picture of all the facilities in the city, that's what they're going to be able to see.
Okay. Commissioner Wang.
Just on that, the facilities assessment, is that done by a third party, an outside organization?
That's correct. We would use a consultant, and the project manager would manage that.
And is there not an opportunity to bring that part forward so that you have the outside organization conducting the assessment, so that we're ready to sort of make a recommendation and plan something sort of in the years 3, 4, 5 timeframe, or is that like a resource thing?
That is the plan, to bring that forward, but a project manager has to handle that whole assessment of what we're looking for, and the engineer will work with that third party.
Oh, so you need a project manager to even start.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Commissioner Valadez. Oh, I'm sorry. You know what, Commissioner? Yeah, you haven't had a question yet, but you got your hand up, and then we'll come back to Commissioner Valadez.
Yeah, I just had a quick question. Hey Manny, has that RFP already been issued and awarded?
For the facilities assessment?
Yeah, correct.
No, no, it has not.
Oh, okay. Well, when's that planned to go out?
That's part of what the project manager will do.
We have to
That-
hire the
that-
project manager first.
Yeah, to
And
put
that's
that
gonna be a
on.
full-time job or an IC?
I see. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry. What was your question? I'm asking.
Independent contractor.
Is it gonna be
Oh,
like a contractor or full-time?
No, that would be a full-time staff
Okay.
member that would do that.
All right, great. Thanks.
Commissioner Valadez.
Thank you, Chair Daly. On the prioritization of the playgrounds you mentioned, you used two different qualifiers, at least that's how I recall it. For Shoup, you called it out because it's the highest use. But then for the others, you said they were listed in order of age, with
Yep.
Rosita being the newest, Grant being the whichever playground above is the oldest. So my question is this, I like the fact that you picked out Shout because you said it was the most used, and therefore one would think that regardless of age, it might have the most wear and tear, especially if it is old. But why not apply the same criteria to the other playgrounds to look at their use as well as age to derive the order in which they would be done?
If I can, through the chair.
Please.
So Shoup was installed in 2004. And then the next two were installed in 2007. So we did go by the age criteria.
Oh, you did, okay.
Except for that Grant Park's fitness equipment. is
Right.
older, But the other equipment at Grant Park.
That's correct.
So just to be complete, just so that I have this out of my mind. So none of the parks that might be newer because they are used more might be in worse condition than the older ones. Does that make sense, or is that too weird?
Yes, they could be, but they are regularly inspected by the maintenance staff, so they would know if the condition is, I don't know, I don't like to use the word. If the condition is more poor than another, even though it's newer. So it's, I think that the maintenance department has a pretty good grasp on it. We are going by, in this particular case, by the year that they were installed.
The other thing I would note is that this document, years 3, 4, and 5 are less defined than, of course, things in year 1, which are imminent that we need, that the city is literally working on right now. And the things in year 2 are, kind of the next things on the list. And then you've got these outer years, and within the outer years and within that list, I would imagine that the facts on the ground are going to change some of the relative positioning in that list. So I would hope that we don't get too tied up in the order of things in that far right column, because as we get closer and those things actually move into a current year or year 2 paradigm, they may change position relative to one another. I would hope that we can be more concerned about what's in each of those columns right now than what the order is of the parks in column 3, because I just think there's too much uncertainty between now and when we get to all of that. Undoubtedly, the residents will have an opportunity to weigh in too. That's just one example of input that I think may influence that list. Are there any other questions before we move to discussion? Okay, so here's how I would like us to conduct this discussion. let's take any specific items from this document that we want to discuss and tee them up one by one. So for example, we might talk about the facilities condition assessment. But let's note that if we bring up anything pertaining to Halsey House, we have to pause for a moment and give Commissioner Corrigan an opportunity to step away. I'll go ahead and go first. And I'll say that I feel very strongly that that facilities condition assessment, understanding that there's some challenges, that needs to be brought forward into year 2. To leave that in those outer years, I think is unacceptable. But I fully understand that, you know, staff bandwidth and resources are going to come into play here. But in my experience, if you fail to plan, you're basically planning to fail. And so I don't think we can afford to do that to, you know, the community, the portion of the community that uses that facility. Are there others who want to comment on this particular item?
Are we
Vice Chair
just
Morris?
teeing up right now, or are we actually talking about?
We're discussing. This is open discussion on items, and we'll tee up each item and discuss it. And if there needs to be a vote on it, then we'll have a vote, or, you know, we'll have a motion, second, and vote, and so on. But yeah, so right now we're discussing the facilities condition assessment as to whether or not that should be in the out years on this document or brought forward into year 2, or whatever the will of the commission is to recommend. Vice Chair Morris.
I agree with you, Chair Daly. I'd like to see this move forward as well, the Grant Park part. And I hear staff loud and clear about we need a project manager before the facility assessment can be done. I think my input on that is if there's any way that we could move it forward as its own project and not worry about it being tied to all the facility assessment, if that's what's holding it back, that would be great. Looks like there's a comment. Oh, wait.
I'm so sorry, Chair Daly. I just realized we have a member of the public who would like to speak on this before the discussion begins.
Oh,
Okay, let's do that.
Okay.
Let's that's my fault. I apologize to the public. Let's go ahead and hear from
Yeah, I'm going to unmute Roberta.
Yeah.
Roberta, please tell me, have you been unmuted?
Oh, yes, hi.
Okay.
So yes, I totally agree with Chairman Daly that I just think this situation at Grant Park, which was in the retreat report, that there's no hot water and the electrical panel needs to be updated. You know, I think that this could be done in phases, but we have money in the park and loofies. I would be short on staff, but I think that it should be a priority. I think he needs to, you know, spread his staff around different projects. And I would, you know, ask you to go back to Jim Sandoval and say, you know, we need to address this as a priority now, or, you know, what can we address now? Because I'm sorry, this is really criminal. I had written to you and said, you know, the senior commission city was certified, but it's not good enough to be certified as age-friendly city and then do things with the most vulnerable part of our population. And it's a large part of our population. At least 25 to 30% of the population is seniors. And I'm not saying you have to do the kitchen now, but to wait to see what the facilities report is on the police station and on MSC and on the fire department and all the other facilities is, I understand that you want to give a whole plate full of things to choose from, but this is pretty simple. And it's been an important item for many years. I go to the retreat year after year after year. This Grant Park facility always comes up as a top priority from council. And you have the money, and if the only problem is you need a staff member to manage it, ask to move some staff around, that this is a priority from, for the community and from the Parks and Rec Commission. And I've spoken to, like I said, Chris Nagarro, the Senior Commission, and the people, they're all aware of it, and they all want it to happen sooner than later. Thank you very much. I think that you guys are also, like-minded. So thank you. Bye.
Thanks, Roberta. Are there other public comments? Do we have any other public comments, Casey?
We do have other people attending. No one else has their hand raised, so I do not believe there are other public comments.
Okay. Commissioner Ye.
Yeah, this is kind of, I understand that we're not supposed to comment to Roberta's point, but this is along the lines of what we're discussing right now. I'm fully with her on this electrical panel issue. I don't understand why we need to have the entire city's parks and whatever facilities analyzed. Doing a commercial panel is what, $5,000? So what's the problem here? I don't understand. If someone just kicked it in, wouldn't we have to fix it?
Good point, Commissioner Ye. Commissioner Corrigan?
Yeah, I think I'm aligned with all the commissioners who've spoken thus far, and you, Chair Daly, and also Ms. Phillips. I guess the question is, can we phase the facilities assessment and just prioritize Grant Park facilities first, and potentially not even do all of what's in that facilities assessment, just the electrical and kitchen element? We can contain the cost of this. So I just think phasing that in first, and even doing it in year one, I don't know what year one means. If it's in January of 23 that we get a project manager on board, maybe then that can start. I would pull it as far forward as we can, dependent on a project manager.
Thank you.
I mean, but as a project manager, what is this person really, if you're a project manager and this was the project, I know some of you guys have built or remodeled your house. How long is this supposed to take? 3 hours?
Let me come back to you, Commissioner Ye. We've got a couple of other commissioners with their hands up. Vice Chair Morris.
I actually will wait until other people have had a chance to speak, if that's okay.
That's fine. Commissioner Valadez.
Okay, so I'm going to take a different approach. I've heard everybody's, and I think I know where Vice Chair Morris stands. It seems that most of the commissioners are very much in favor of pulling this in. When you think of it as an electrical panel, okay, you're like, okay, yeah, I had 2 electrical panels in my house replaced, and it didn't take much more than a day. But I'm just wondering if I want to look at it more from a macro standpoint. Clearly, the seniors need the facility. They need the services provided at the facility. To what extent, I'm personally not familiar because I've never used those facilities in that way, but I will grant it. Is there any way, pending staff's ability to hire, for the staff, the ability to hire the engineering manager, the ability to go through the bid process, and the time to go through the facilities assessment, even if they up prioritize grant to the very top, the first thing assessed, which could take a time, can those services be offered if augmented by transportation at the Hillview Community Center? If so, when could that service be done? If not, why? Is it because they haven't selected food service capability, or, is that standing in the way? I mean, we've got this big brand new community center. It seems to me that, residents, and it would build better north-south community if all the seniors could come to the community center to get their food and have some programs. But that's just me looking from a macro standpoint. Again, I'm not digging down into grant in particular. So that's the comment I wanted to make.
Through the chair, I wasn't sure if you want Director Hernandez or myself to respond to these or wait to the end after you guys have your discussion.
Let's go ahead and, I mean, unless somebody has a direct question that they ask of you, let's go ahead and sort of get everything to the surface. And then you guys, and then staff can weigh in again. Casey, I see you talking, but I don't know if you're talking to us.
I'm sorry. No, I did not have a comment.
Okay. Vice Chair Morris.
Right. I'd like to make my comments now. So what I heard staff say is that we sort of need to know what the space is going to be used for. We've been having this conversation about Grant Park Community Center for quite a while about getting it done. So I think that's why some of us are sort of anxious about, like, let's just get this done, you know, because we've been talking about it for as long as I've been on the commission. So I am wondering if there's something we don't understand about what the facilities there may be used for. I understand doing a complete park plan, master plan for that park. I understand that, but I'm thinking that we are going to have a senior center there unless there's something we don't know about. So if that's the case, we need to make it the best possible situation for the seniors there. I heard Commissioner Valadez loudly and clearly about, can we, you know, move people to the community center? I have attended that senior center at times, you know, just dropped in and chatted with people and hung out a little bit. It's a very strong community over there, and there are quite a few people that go there. I'm not sure, given having spoken with some of them, how they would feel about being transported from there to the other facility, or driving to the other, you know, to our new community center. But I mean, I'm certainly thinking that that would be something that could be discussed, but I do think we've been talking about this for a long time. So I stand by, I'd like to see it move forward, at least to get our basic electrical up and going, because I think it's only going to serve that facility, even if there are other plans for it in some other, you know, way that I don't know, but there are also meeting rooms there. So it would be nice if the electrical was updated for that reason. And if we had hot water for people to be able to use to, you know, wash their hands and for sanitary reasons in the kitchen that isn't being used as a full-on kitchen. So I'm supportive and say, let's move it forward. And if we can, and separate it out from the, you know, huge facilities plan.
Right. So let me make one more comment on this. I understand the need to define requirements for something as simple as a panel upgrade at this facility. And I think that there's a desire to, you know, go through the facilities condition assessment process and fully, you know, fully flesh out what the requirements will be, because that'll tell you whether, you know, a 220 or 440 and so on and so forth is what is required. But the time and money involved with a panel upgrade is not onerous, in my opinion. And I think that even if we chose to put in a panel that is merely sufficient for, you know, operating the facility kind of under the status quo, but getting the hot water flowing and things like that. And then we came back later on at some later point in this process and said, geez, you know what? We really want to add air conditioning because we want this to be a cooling center. You know, if things like that come out of a subsequent master plan for Grant Park, and we've invested $10, $15, $20,000 to do this electrical panel upgrade and get the hot water going, that in itself isn't, I mean, in light of all of the things that we spend money on in our community, if we spent that money now only to find out later that we needed a more robust panel, we would at least be able to open up and provide services to the seniors in that neighborhood that use that facility. And I don't think it would be money that was poorly spent if we came back and had to take another bite at the apple and decided that we needed an even more robust panel. So what I'm personally, interested in recommending or making a motion to recommend is that staff pull it forward to the best of their ability and recognize that our commission believes this is a very high priority based on our input with the community and so on and so forth. That's kind of where I'm going to end up on this. But what I would like to do also is make sure we've heard from everybody on the facilities condition assessment and any other items that we want to address. And then after we've surfaced all of our concerns, we can maybe try and tie it together in one motion that says, hey, we accept this report and but would like this priority changed or something. So that's kind of where I am on this. I don't necessarily want to be telling staff, hey, just go replace this panel, and I tell them what our priorities are, let them figure it out. That's kind of where I'm going to end up on this, I think. Commissioner Valadez, you look like you want to jump in.
It's just my closing comment on this topic is that I wouldn't disagree with what you're saying. I don't disagree with what you're saying, but in terms of staff taking a look at their highly constrained head count and having to make trade-offs, there's nothing on the left two columns that I would want to drop, with the exception of mothballing Halsey House, in favor of Grant Park. So I get a little worried when I hear that staff it's a zero-sum game at this point because they don't know when they're going to hire more people. And it's very difficult to hire people here in this city. So I get a little worried. I have to admit that I have that worry, and it does impact my thinking. It's kind of a zero-sum game, and so I get worried about that.
Commissioner Corrigan.
Thank you, Chair Daly. The one other, this is a separate item, but the area of the playgrounds, kind of redoing the playgrounds in the out years. The one thing I was curious about is the ADA, column, that part of the investment, and I think that sort of the assumption is that pour in place is a solution for all the playgrounds. And so my question there is there going to be a community? How does that, do we have any say in terms of getting community input into that? Because I'm not sure the community knows that yet, that's sort of a done deal. And I'd like to know if the community supports that, everywhere at every playground. But maybe that's way too micro to bring that up at this point, because it's sort of an implementation item. But I was curious, given the way the staff presented it, it seems like it's a fait accompli, that there will be pour in place.
Director Legge, you want to chime in on that pour in place?
That is correct. It's a done deal.
Okay.
So there.
Sorry.
So, yeah. So I guess I'm sorry. Actually, Chair Daly, may I comment?
Please go ahead, Commissioner Corrigan.
So I guess that's staff's decision. It'll staff to proceed without community input.
There will be community input, as I used for an example, the Hillview Dog Park and the Shout Park, the phase 1 and 2. So for instance, for Shout Park, we will hire a landscape architect who is an expert in playground refurbishment, replacement. We will look not only at the ADA features, we'll look at the surfacing, we'll look at its configuration within the park and shade, and we will come to the commission with the concept, and at that commission, we will do a public process. So that is what is proposed for every one of those parks with the playground. So you notice in the list of year 3, 4, and 5, it was split up into 2, the same way that we did in year 1, year 2. So the first phase would be having a consultant create the design and the public process, and then phase 2 is construction.
Thank you.
Sure.
Vice Chair Morris, is your hand still up or a new hand?
Yep, it's up. I just put it up.
Thank you.
So I just want to clarify this surface thing, because what I was understanding is sort of what Director Legge just said, but then I heard 2 things. So for surfacing, the public is going to be able to, when it gets to the public process, say what they want as surfacing. But then I heard, no, it's poured in place and there won't be any discussion about it. So could that be clarified again? Like, what if the public doesn't want poured in place? What if we don't want poured in place?
So when it goes to council for funding and the public says they don't want pour in place, then staff will present whatever alternatives there are.
Okay, all right, great, thank you. And separate from that, thank you, Director Legge. Separate from that, going back to what Commissioner Valadez said, I see what she's saying about our year 1, year 2 columns and what's already there. And I don't think we have the opportunity to really drop off some of those things, excuse me, because the dog parks are done deals there. That's already, those ships are sailing. So there's no way to go backwards on that. The Halsey House is already dictated by council, and Shout Park by age. I think to get to the question is, but we can add something to these columns. We're not limited to these columns. Is that correct? So if we say Grant Park is a priority for us, we can add that in if it's a small enough job and we can get the staff. If
I think we can certainly put it on record that we think the priorities need to be modified however we choose to express that. In the end, you know, the finance department, city staff we're giving feedback to city staff, and they're going to you know, take it in good faith, but then deal with it in light of their resource constraints and in light of direction from council. So I think we're well within our remit to say we want to add something to column 1. Doesn't mean it will get done, but we can be on record saying that we think that's appropriate.
If I can, through the chair, I have a suggestion. I feel like there's a blanket understanding that no matter what, everything is going to be based on funding and staffing levels, right? The capacity of the staff. So set that aside. No matter what, this commission will have a recommended list of priorities. And so I think that what I'm hearing is Grant Park, the interior building, is the highest priority before all the playgrounds, before even Halsey House mothballing. And so I think that's what the motion could be, is that unless there's some other projects that you think should surface to the top, your recommendation is just to say that the highest priority for this commission is for the Grant Park facilities to be looked at before anything else. That's what I'm hearing.
That may end up being where we land after we've heard discussion from everybody on all the other things that may be important as well. So Commissioner Wang, you look like you wanted to.
Yeah, in that vein, if I might just bring up a second point, I'd love to see the fitness equipment project be moved forward. Also, it is the oldest kind of facility in the city, and we've been talking about trying to do fitness equipment for even before this commission. And so if it's just that one location, just wondering if it might be possible to move that forward to either year 1 or year 2, just sort of not leave it hanging out there in kind of the out years, because it's still going to be a whole process of, research and, outreach and, collecting opinions and things like that. So it's still a process before anything can happen.
Thank you, Commissioner Wang. Vice Chair Morris?
I was going to bring up the exact same thing. And because it's our oldest feature on the list, I would say move that forward as well. And also because we've created this brand new community center and there's more focus. And so it would be nice if that was a little more spiffy, so to speak, to match our new community center.
Okay. Are there, yes, Commissioner Valadez.
Something just occurred to me. Director Legge, you had mentioned early about how the report that Vice Chair Morris and I put together on the inclusivity enhancements, that you would keep that in your heads as you're going through this whole process. But I want to ask a very specific question. Does that mean that, because our initial approach, Vice Chair Morris's and my initial approach was to kind of stay under the radar from CIP and just do these incremental tiny additions at each park, maybe as small as one swing at a park, in order to increase inclusivity before, in some tiny degree, before the whole CIP game plays out. Is it fair to say that based on what we're hearing, that that's not really an approach that you're going to take, that we will see our inclusivity become enhanced only vis-a-vis the replacement of the playground structures and the resurfacing of the playground areas?
So Director Hernandez can help me in responding to this, but for instance, the picnic tables, we can do that, right? We can get the extended picnic tables. I think there are some incremental things that we can do, but when we were working with the subcommittee, it was before we found out about the recommended replacement of the whole playground. So it sort of is counterproductive if we do small pieces, if it's just going to all be ripped out and the whole playground equipment is being replaced. So the last two playgrounds, the one at Tiny Tots at San Antonio Club and the one that's in front of Lacey, we can start with those two because those were just installed in 2018. That would be something that we could do because it's going to be there for quite a long time, right? So
right.
that was the staff's thinking. Is that correct, Director?
Yes, yes. That's what I would say is maybe the playground is going to look differently or something like that. We could though. I mean, we could always do surface mount tables and stuff like that. But yeah, exactly like Director Legge was saying, we can do pieces like that. But we just thought it would be the best practice to do that.
All right, thank you.
Yes, Vice Chair Morris.
So just very briefly to when some of us attended the CPRS, and Commissioner Wang can probably speak more about this, but there were some, so let's say we did the adult fitness area. There were some adult fitness pieces that were definitely very inclusive in their designs. And so we could be moving forward on some of this simply by going after that one area and making some changes there. So that could be a fairly significant change. And then I do think it is my understanding that, I mean, I've been told this enough times now that it's sinking into my thick head, that, it is one of those things where if we put down, if we put in a feature, that is more inclusive, like the swing that I've always said, let's put the swing in, just put the swing in, that, we could possibly put the port in place into that area. And, you know, I'd like to explore that more. And so I think when it gets to the work plan discussion, I will talk about that a little bit more, but it may end up being on year 2 or 3, but I think we could definitely start working on it with the adult playground if the commission decides to move that, not adult playground, adult fitness area, if we decide to move forward on that.
Okay. I think we've had a lot of discussion now. We've heard from everybody. There appears to be a consensus that Grant Park and the facilities condition assessment, or whatever portion of that assessment is required to get Grant Park sort of operational. I think there's some consensus that we want to do something about that. You know, we've got this philosophy in our town right now that's being encouraged by the city manager and by city council, and I think appropriately so by those that are worried about our finances, that we need to focus on the amenities that we have and on maintaining and protecting and preserving and extending their life, and not you know, bring in a whole bunch of new amenities for consideration when we don't generally have a budget that supports that. And so I just want to say that, you know, what I'm hearing from the other commissioners and what I've heard unequivocally from residents, and I've done a couple of Zoom meetings with residents in the Grant Park neighborhood, you know, they see this as we're letting an existing amenity fall apart, and we're not even providing the functionality that, you know, we're below status quo, so to speak, you know. And so let's just, I'd like to see us get back up to the status quo, which is to say there's hot water at Grant Park, there's an electrical panel that supports basic functionality, and, you know, whether or not the kitchen is a commercial kitchen or a warming kitchen or anything like that, I think can probably be deferred, but let's just get the baseline functionality up to snuff for our residents. So that said, you know, let's get kind of a straw poll first on whether or not we would like to emphasize Grant Park as a priority. I for one, definitely want to. Okay, I see 4 commissioners. Now let's have a straw poll on whether or not we'd like to also emphasize the replacement of the fitness equipment at Hillview as a priority that we want to push. Commissioner Wang, Commissioner Morris. I'm on the edge, but I don't think it matters. There's not quite enough support there. Commissioner Ye, were you saying you're weighing in on the fitness equipment? You think that needs to be replaced?
I'm all for replacing whatever we can in general. There's no priority here for me.
Okay.
Whatever makes sense based on what the city can do.
Okay. Commissioner Valadez?
I want to support the project, and I do support the project. For me, it comes down to this issue of the very limited resources. And when my heart goes out to people, my heart tends to go more out to the youngest, the underserved, the seniors. And while I care about the studly middle ground that goes out and does fitness on big equipment, I want to give facilities to them, but they fall in priority for me. And so that, given that we have such limited headcount and staff for project management and for design and even for public outreach, that's why I tend to just fall that side and not raise my hand when you asked about the adult fitness. It was difficult.
Okay. Vice Chair Morris?
Maybe this will help, Commissioner Valdez. So when I was observing the dog park activity at Hillview, there were a number of I would say a number of our elders that use the current equipment, and also a number of teens and younger people that used it. And I interacted with a few of them and asked them questions, and they really appreciated having it there. And I would say, as far as sort of the more middle-aged, like 30 somethings, that's not what I saw using that equipment as much. It was more, there were a couple teens that I saw kind of regularly there. There were a couple college students that I'd see regularly there. There were a couple older guys that I saw there. I didn't see a lot of females using it, but that was sort of the age group that I saw, using that area. So, and they were, again, quite excited that it was there and really appreciated it. I mean, technically, I think it could wait if staff says it can wait, but it is our oldest area in that list. It's quite old.
Okay. I'm going to make a motion that we support the recommendations of staff with the modification that Grant Park be elevated, and if possible, the facilities condition assessment or a portion thereof be pulled forward into year 1 or 2. Do I have a second on that motion? Commissioner Corrigan, are you seconding the motion?
Yeah, I second the motion.
Okay. Is there a discussion of the motion before we call the question? Vice Chair Morris?
Yes, please. So when you say that you want to move that we accept this, are you saying that as a separate thing and we'll discuss other things in addition? Because we haven't discussed Halsey House at all. Or are you saying this is it? This is what the end of the discussion about this?
We can, if there are other items that need to be discussed, we can do that, and I'll table this motion for those, or withdraw this motion at this time for those items to be discussed. I just felt like maybe we had finished the overall discussion, but I could be mistaken. And please, if somebody else has another item on this list that they want to discuss, let's do that for sure.
May we table it for just a moment?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
My concern about Grant Park is that I don't know if they have air conditioning in the senior center, if they even have window units. And so my concern is, as we move forward, if it's 3 to 5 years, we have a serious issue with our planet heating up more and more, and we are needing cooling stations. And that area does have a number of seniors who are, well, anyway, it has a number of seniors that use that facility. And so I'd like to see it where it's wired to the point where we can at least have some sort of air conditioning, even if it's only in a separate room, so that we have the electric to be able to have one room there be a cooling station in case we have an emergency where we need to have that for people, for not just seniors, but for vulnerable populations as well. So, and then I also wondered about if solar would be a possibility, or if that would just be wait until we upgrade everything and do our facilities plan and our master plan. But the air conditioning is a concern for me.
Air conditioning is important. We do not have a cooling center in South Los Altos. Ultimately, to do this right, we would put in solar. We would put in a massive panel to support the kind of solar arrays that would be able to provide off-grid functionality, because we know from the climate adaptation and action planning process that it's almost certain that when it's 105 degrees in town, PG&E is going to turn off the power, and that's when our most vulnerable residents are going to need a cooling center, and it will actually need to be an off-grid cooling center. I personally, although I'm incredibly supportive of that effort, I don't think that we're just not in a place in terms of budget and staff resources to bring that much forward. So reluctantly, although I totally agree with you, Commissioner or Vice Chair Morris, in terms of the importance of this, I'm reluctant to try and burden the immediate priorities with this longer term plan. Commissioner Valdez.
I have a question for the two directors here. Has there ever been discussion in terms of the facilities? Well, let me ask a clarifying question. If you put up parking lot solar panels like all the schools have, is that considered a facility, or is that part of the park, or is that some other category of investment on the part of the city?
I believe, yeah, I believe that could be part of the facility, because it's affecting the facility. It's just like a panel out on the parking lot. That's all.
So
Well, you have to, Manny, you have to put, I mean, the difference in panels is huge, right?
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
a normal commercial panel is, a few feet square, right? But the kind of panel that you need for a charging station is going to be the size of 2 or 3 phone booths. And the difference in cost is $20,000, $10,000, let's say, for a panel replacement versus $500,000 for the kind of electrical infrastructure that's required for those charging arrays. And the reason I know about this is because I went and talked to the companies that did the work for the school district, and I talked to the school district as well, and tried to bring forward enough information to begin to evaluate this particular type of thing. I really want to see us do something like that as part of a Grant Park master plan, and I pushed last year to have us take on the Grant Park master plan during this year, but unfortunately, council and staff that have a better view of what our resources are kind of stiff-armed me on that.
Yeah, so my question then becomes this, in terms of whether you call it the Grant Park Master Plan or it's the actual Los Altos Parks Master Plan. I think, and this is off topic in the sense that it's nowhere on anywhere of these sheets, but we as a park should consider pushing for, the school type of solar arrays in our parking lots to the extent that it's possible, in order to try to take our facilities as much off grid as we possibly can, whether it's just for cooling stations or whether it's for general operations.
It's not possible any place other than Grant Park. And the reason is that the power doesn't feed back to the grid.
Not at Rosita?
Nope. It's not possible at any place other than Grant Park, because you have to have a facility that consumes electricity to justify the deployment of the solar array, because the city can't use the production of those solar arrays to provide power for other uses. It all has to be consumed on site. And that's why it's effective in the school implementation. And it saves the school district, it saves Los Altos School District $60,000 a month in utility bills. But that's because every school consumes a lot of electricity. And so they have those facilities on site to provide that electricity. At our other parks, we don't have we don't have a consumption profile that justifies that kind of infrastructure.
Okay.
Now, if we were able to feed it back into the grid, and Los Altos could sell that power back to a utility provider, that would change the calculus. Or if we were able to sort of reuse it in other locations. So, we might see something with regard to the police station, for example, because you have to have off-grid power to support the network equipment and everything else that is going to go on at the emergency operations center. And, we could use our diesel generators that are already too old and need to be replaced, or we could do it with, lithium ion storage and solar arrays. But really you have to have a consumption pattern at that location that justifies the infrastructure. Vice Chair Morris.
Could we future agendize this conversation?
Yeah.
The solar panels in parks, or solar options in parks. Okay. I
Yeah.
think that'd be helpful. And then, not to be, selfish about this, but what I'd like to figure out is that in your motion somehow, it seems like Commissioner Ye and you, Chair Daly, have a better understanding about some of this. I'd like to, if it's possible, and certainly with Director Hernandez, I'd like to understand if there's any way we could provide one air conditioner in one room at the Grant Park Community Center, just in case we need it. Not that it's going to be used all the time. And maybe it'll be in the main room, maybe it won't, but they have window units. I want to make sure the electric can handle that if it's an urgent matter and we have days of heat that are going to be.
Perhaps we could do a friendly amendment to the motion, something along the lines of, cooling is also a priority, even if it's limited at initially, and leave it to staff to figure out, because they'll figure out how big the panel needs to be for the existing requirements. And if there's, one or two window units or something like that, let them factor that into the equation. So I would definitely support a friendly amendment that identified cooling as something we want evaluated in that pull-in. Would you be
Great.
okay?
I would like to offer that amendment to have a minimal amount of cooling included in this phase of the electrical upgrade as our recommendation. So, and I think Commissioner Ye had something he was going to say, but I don't want to speak for him, but I saw his hand go up.
Okay, yeah, Commissioner Ye, did you want to say something?
I agree. Granted, this is all determinate by what the city standards are, but if you need, like what Teresa mentioned about having air conditioning in a room, I mean, that's just like what every Asian country does. I don't know if we can do it. It's not difficult, and the panel should be able to handle that.
Yeah. Yeah. They don't, the amp draw isn't brutal on those. Particularly with the modern heat exchangers and things that they use. So why don't we do this? Why don't we see if we can craft this friendly amendment into the motion? Because I certainly support that. And Commissioner Corrigan, I believe you were the original second on the motion. Do you support? Okay.
I support that.
Okay. So let's do this. Let's see if we can get the wording right for Casey.
Can I tell you what I have, Chair
Yes,
Daly,
please,
and then
please,
you
please.
tell me if
Go
it
with
needs
that.
to be adjusted.
Please.
Chair Daly supports the recommendation of staff with modification that Grant Park be emphasized. And then I added Vice Chair Morris's friendly amendment there to include a minimum amount of cooling, and the facilities condition assessment be pulled forward to year 1 or 2.
Okay, Commissioner Valadez.
Do you want to keep the 1 or 2? Do you not want to be specific? 1 or, and then, or
No,
or
because we don't have control over that. This isn't we're asking for staff and the finance department and so on to do their best. So I'm reluctant to say, year 1, but I defer to the consensus of this group. If everybody says, let's doggone it, say year 1, then let's do it. So how about a straw poll for year 1 for taking a hard statement about pulling the FCA to year 1? Who wants to do that? Commissioner Corrigan?
I'm torn here. What I'd like to say is as soon as possible within the year 1 or 2. at the latest. I mean, I think we could do
May I
that
just-
where we can put the heat on it and say, this is what we want. But we also understand that it may have to go to year 2. But if we say in the window of year 1 and 2, I think that might be helpful with it, you know, with the understanding we want it in year 1 if we
I
can.
support the addition of the phrase as soon as possible within year 1 or 2. Would that be okay with you, Commissioner Corrigan?
Absolutely, Chair Daley.
Okay, I think we have a solid motion now. Casey, you want to read back what we have?
Yes, I can do that. Chair Daley supports the recommendation of staff with modification that Grant Park be emphasized to include a minimum amount of cooling and the facilities condition assessment be pulled forward ASAP, or be pulled forward to be completed ASAP within year 1 or 2.
Vice Chair Morris.
We're not saying what we want. Read that again, please.
Yeah, it should.
I
Casey,
think we're
it should
missing
say-
the part about the electrical. I think we left that off completely.
Yeah, heating and electrical, right?
Heating, electrical. Go ahead, please.
Supports the recommendation of staff with modification that Grant Park be emphasized to include a minimum amount of cooling and the facilities condition assessment be pulled forward to be completed ASAP within year 1 or 2.
I'd like to change that to say, I move that the commission supports the recommendations of staff with the change that Grant Park be prioritized and that the electrical panel be replaced to support at least a minimum amount of cooling, and that the facilities condition assessment be brought forward as soon as possible into year 1 or 2. And I think that we have that. I do see our council liaison has his hand up. Councilmember Weinberg.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. I want to thank you for this debate. I appreciate all the comments that have been made. And I think that you've kind of gone in a lot of different directions and have tightened things up into what I think is an appropriate motion. I just want to make sure that as a council member, I understand what it is that you're trying to do. What I am hearing is that the commission wants to adopt and approve the draft CIP list that staff put together as attachment 1. So you're officially approving that, with the exception of recommending that council adjust its priorities to make Grant Park a more urgent issue, specifically with respect to the electrical panels and cooling and heating. Is that right?
Yes, I
Okay.
believe
So
so.
I think the motion would be more clear if you simply incorporate, and you can incorporate by reference attachment 1, which is the draft recommended capital improvement plan, and then make clear that you think the council ought to prioritize Grant Park because of the urgent need to use it as a cooling center during the hot summer days for seniors. So if you tighten it up, I think that would be useful. I also think that you're better off saying do it in year 1 if that's what you want the council to do. If you say year 1 or 2, it sounds a little more wishy-washy, and I think that there's kind of an intent to defer to council, because ultimately council is the one that's going to direct staff when it comes to establishing the CIPs and what's go forward in year 1 and what goes forward in later years. But if what you think is that this is an item that really ought to be an urgently considered item, then recommend that it be done in year 1. And if you think it can wait a year and a half, then recommend that it be done in year 2. But try to tighten it up and make it as clean as possible. To just say we go with staff recommendations, I think is a little more, it's not as focused as it could be, as opposed to actually incorporating what staff has put together.
Thank you. I appreciate that guidance. Councilmember Weinberg, my understanding is that we're not actually taking action to make a recommendation to council here. We are actually, this is going to go back to the finance department and have further staff work. Director Legge, do you want to clarify?
So the answer to that question is both yes and no, that this is not going directly to the council. But at the end of the day, when staff proposes the CIPs for our next fiscal year, council is going to say yes or no. And council, I think, no one doubts that council is going to move some things around, take some things off that staff thought would be a higher priority, and vice versa. So yes, you are letting staff know what the commission's preference is, but you are also indirectly communicating to council that you believe it would be prudent for council to prioritize Grant Park as well as everything else that we've already prioritized and as is reflected in this attachment 1.
Okay, so let's take another stab at this motion. Why don't we say, hang on a second, please, Commissioner Valadez. Why don't we amend the motion to say that the commission recommends the adoption of staff's CIP priorities in attachment 1 with the change or no.
You used modification before.
Okay, with the modification that Grant Park be made a priority and that the panel upgrade sufficient to provide at least minimal cooling and the FCA be brought forward into year 1.
The FCA for Grant.
Yes. So hang on a second, Commissioner Valadez. Commissioner Corrigan, as the original second on the motion, are you on board with this amendment to the motion? Do you want to hear it back?
I am on board. I just want to make sure that covers heating and hot water, like that. That was heating, hot water, and cooling were the 3 major things, I think.
Okay, so let's say minimal cooling, hot water, and heating.
And then I support it.
Okay, Casey, would you please read it back, and then we'll have one final go around the table on discussion of the motion, and then I'll call the question, okay?
I can reread it. I was rewriting it as Councilmember Weinberg was speaking. And so I was using some of his language and some of your original language. So please tell me if you have any adjustments.
Let's hear what you got.
Okay. Park supports the recommendation for adoption of staff's CIP projects, attachment 1, with a modification that Grant Park be prioritized and the electric panel be replaced to support a minimum amount of cooling, hot water, and heating, and the facilities condition assessment to be pulled forward to year 1.
Facilities condition assessment for Grant, right, for Grant Park. Other than that, I'm almost fine with it. The opening phrase should just be Park recommends the adoption of staff's. Okay. Now let's have discussion on the motion. Commissioner Valadez and then Vice Chair Morris.
Procedural question. I didn't know we were done talking about the entire CIP. I thought we were just done talking about Grant and the general. I mean, I actually want, I know you took a quick consensus on the adult fitness and that kind of fell off the table, but I think I heard Vice Chair Morris saying she wanted to talk about Halsey. I don't know if it was in relation to the CIP, but I definitely wanted to propose something else move. So when this motion says it starts with the opening statement, we're accepting the CIP draft plan, I say no because I haven't had the opportunity to throw my pitch in for a change. This has nothing to do with grant. It's just another change.
Chair Daly, you're muted.
Sorry. Okay, thank you, Commissioner Valadez. Vice Chair Morris?
What I had raised about Halsey House was if anybody wanted to discuss anything about it. So I didn't take a position, and I'm fine with as it is, the mothballing for now.
Right.
But I do have a question, and we do not have, we can go back the other direction either way you want. I need to hear that motion one more time, because I'm not in 100% agreement with moving the whole facilities assessment into year one. I think we're not going to get that done. And if we ask for the electrical, the minimum amount done there, that's fine. But I think the whole facilities assessment is what's going to drag us down, because that is going to require that project manager. It's going to require the consultant. And so that's going to make it really hard for us to get this, what we're calling a smaller change. I know it's not a small change. I'm assuming that Director Hernandez is off screen just going like this about us referring to it as a simpler update. But I'd like to stick with the update, take the facilities assessment for Grant Park out and put it on hold so that it's done with the rest of it. And let's just get this electrical stuff done. Anybody?
Commissioner Corrigan.
I would say, hearing Vice Chair Morris's explanation, I think that is a prudent move to make sure we get sort of the, aside from Commissioner Valadez's, enhancements for the grant issue. I think we should really constrain it, narrow it as much as possible, so we can show, progress as soon as possible.
Okay. I'm okay with making that change, but let's see if we've got some other things that we need to put into this motion. So let's table it, reopen the discussion on the rest of the document. Okay. And then we can come back to Commissioner Valadez on what she wanted to also bring up. For now, let's go to Commissioner Wang.
Can I suggest that as we're talking about each issue, that can we just agree or make a motion and vote on adding just that one thing to the CIP, as opposed to kind of a blanket adopting the CIP with A, B, and C? I mean, I think that if we sort of say we want to move to elevate Grant Park and then make a decision, and then we move on to the rest.
I appreciate your sentiment. The way we're going to do it is we're going to have one motion, okay? But we can do a straw poll on individual items and then add them into the motion if need be. So functionally, it's very similar to what you're advocating, but at the end of the day, we're just going to have one motion that incorporates those things. So I'll table this motion for now, reopen the discussion on the broader CIP document. Now is the time, Commissioner Valadez, you can lead us, whatever you wanted to bring up, and then we'll talk about it and take a straw poll and see if it should be included in our motion.
Okay, I had asked a clarifying, mine has to do with the dog parks, fundamentally. And I'm still working within the mental framework of, if I get something, I have to give up something. So I'm still playing the zero-sum game. And I understand that, as Councilman Weinberg has suggested, we should ask for what we want and not worry necessarily about all those things, but I do, and I will. So in looking at the two left-hand columns of the draft CIP, let me just state my proposal at first, and then I will rationalize it. My proposal would be to take the Mackenzie Dog Park Phase 1 and Phase 2 and move them respectively one column left, both of them. In trade for that, take the Shout Park Playground Phase 1 and Phase 2 and move them one column to the right, respectively. So that pushes the construction part of Shout Park out into these outer years, 3, 4, 5. understanding that it is the highest priority per staff's request, but it parallelizes, I just created a word, the two dog parks in terms of public input and construction. So let me tell you why I believe that's necessary. I understand that based on what both directors have said and what council has directed, is that we're going to have, fencing up at both of these parks pretty quickly. I still personally do not know exactly when, but it should be very quickly. And therefore, people will start bringing their dogs and they will have the impression that they have dog parks, and we get to continue studying it. Yeah, we're not calling them formally pilots, but we're calling them first phases before we go permanent. The reason I still believe that the public input and the design and the hiring of consultancy, and also down the road, public process on construction and then the actual construction should be in parallel, is because at some point one permanent park is gonna open. And if the second permanent park is not open at roughly the same time, say within the same season, you're going to have material damage plus overusage of the one park you open, and it threatens the viability of the park. If you recall the mindset of the council, in particular the mayor, when she made her final comments in approving both parks, it was that, damage to one could cast a pall on the entire concept of dog parks. And I think that is a very real concern. And so I believe that if our goal as a commission is to bring a new element of usage into our park system that protects the rest of the parks and protects the trees and the waterways and all that, and that is by creating these two parks, that they really should be opened on the same date. They are roughly the same season, they should be, so that there's not we don't run into this overuse issue, which could really cast a pall on the entire program. Whereas waiting 1 year for the public input and design on Shoup is still within the realm of what we're planning for all of these other playgrounds anyways, and it's still accelerated relative to the others. But I think the downside of delaying that process by 1 year is not as dramatically negative as could be introducing this new element of functionality into our parks, which is the dog parks. So I would like to pitch for that swap to happen, and I'm hoping I can get some support. Thank you.
Vice Chair Morris, and then Commissioner Ye.
I'd like to ask that either Director Legge or Director Hernandez address what I recall about the library being in the space that they're in. I don't recall when they're supposed to be out of that space at Hillview, and then also how long the pilot program is to run at McKinsey. And that may affect what Commissioner Valadez is asking.
I can try to answer that because I'm not sure, just to address McKinsey, I'm not sure of the pilot period of McKinsey. So I don't think that's ever been officially stated. So that's McKinsey. As far as the Hillview, it's the Friends of the Library. So that space is being looked at right now, but the Friends of the Library need to move into the main library. That's right adjacent to their current trailer. I don't know, it's a trailer, but that extension that they have there, that extension building that's across the parking lot. So their workings in that facility, I guess we'd call it, will go into the library, but the county's barely putting the plans together right now. So that's what we're waiting for, that permanent area to be. But in the meantime, we're putting that dog park area in the new grass that took over the parking lot. I think everybody's familiar with where that should be on, I believe, the east side of the soccer field. So.
Okay, and so I'm not sure, I need to have Commissioner Valadez confirm something for me, but Director Hernandez, do you have a sense of kind of how long this process takes with the library, Friends of the Library? Is it going to be 2 months, 6 months, a year? Do you have any sense how quickly they move on these sorts of things?
Just gauging on their workings right now and the anticipated construction. It's not going to be a lot, but it is going to be. We're putting like you said, the county's putting plans together. We can only anticipating, and I think it's looking. Their agreement with the city for Friends of the Library's usage on that property expires at the end of August. So I think the target would be after that point or somewhere near that point. But I think realistically, you're looking at 9 months. That's my opinion. So.
Okay, thank you. And I was thinking the 6-month range. So, okay, great. Thank you. And then Commissioner Valdez, could you clarify something for me? Because I might have just like gone brain dead for half a second. Are you talking about the temporary parks, dog parks being open simultaneously? I thought I heard you say permanent, or are you talking permanent?
It is my understanding that the temporary dog parks, the first shot, the first implementation that will be open to the public, they're supposed to be open pretty concurrently in the relative near term. But what I was talking about was the actual CIP, because my view is that the Hillview, the phase 1 of each of the dog parks is the public process and input on design by a consultant. It's the same for both. They're just staggered. And so in year 1, that process for Hillview in particular, but what I'm pitching for is move Mackenzie Park's public process and input on design also into year 1. Those two processes can happen while Friends of the Library is doing its thing to get out of the Hillview spot that will eventually be needed for the permanent dog park at Hillview, right? Design and consultancy doesn't need to have possession of the land. The possession of the land comes in when you start to break ground and lay out plans. And that won't happen till year 2. Friends of the Library will be out of the trailer there well before that. So there's no conflict between what I am proposing, the change that I'm proposing, and what exists on the ground at Hillview.
Okay, and may I just add this? I think there may be a little conflict because we have a pilot program at McKinsey. We don't know how long that pilot program is supposed to run. I don't remember hearing it at the meeting, so we probably need to get clarification for it. Therefore, if it's a pilot program, doing all the public outreach and everything before we know whether or not the pilot is going to work and all of the details of that seems premature to me, that we would spend money and time, staff time and other time on it without having that answer first.
Well, I would think that the pilot would be conducted. Let me clarify. Let me ask you to clarify what you're saying. When you talk about pilot, what I had heard when I heard about pilot was the temporary fences. That is the pilot, not a pilot with a permanent installation. So I saw the pilot beginning as soon as Manny and his people get that park up and we allow people to put their dogs in it. And that pilot doesn't need to last an entire year and a half. It only needs to last 6 months, 5 months. And then meanwhile, this, design consultancy can start, and public input can even start on the pilot as it did with the baseball field one. And then we'll still have public input phase 2 with the actual permanent design that the consultant ultimately puts up. So in many ways, Mackenzie Park will have more public input. It'll have public input on this temporary installation, and then it'll have formal public input once the consultant designs it and we bring it to the public with real plans. So I still don't see the conflict.
So I'm going to clarify why I think there's a conflict, and maybe Director Hernandez or Director Legge know the answer to this. So when I think of a pilot program, I think of it as the way we did it with Hillview, which was to see whether or not something was going to work there. Not that it was a pilot that was a done deal. So I think of a pilot as you wait and see how it goes. And then if it goes well, it goes back to the city council. The city council says this worked, we're going to move forward with it. And if it doesn't go well, the city council goes, this was a really not great thing, and we're not going to move forward on it. So does anybody know, is this a done deal? And what's the pilot for if it's a done deal?
I never heard that it would be handled that way.
I'm just asking if there's clarification, because for me, a pilot means it's temporary to see if something works or doesn't work. And so I'm feeling like if we assume that it's going to work, then it's not really a pilot, it's a temporary fencing situation until we establish the full-on thing.
I know
Yeah. Oh,
pilot.
I was going to say, just from a staff perspective, and I think Director Leahy would probably agree with me, that I don't know this as a pilot in the terms of if it works out or if it doesn't. The pilot being, we're doing this and we're going to find out what works best for the permanent version. But pilot as a term defined by a pilot, that's the first I've heard of it. So.
That was my understanding as well.
Commissioner Ye?
Mayor Anander went so far as to say, even if we put in the permanent park, if 3 years down the road, it doesn't look like it's working, we can always take them out.
But by definition, then the United States is a pilot program. Okay, if it doesn't work, we'll scrap it and do something else. Okay, we're getting a little in the weeds here. Hey guys, as a commission, our role as a commission, if just to remind everyone, I know you know this, is to be advisory for city council. We are here to help them, okay, do their jobs and interact with the general public on behalf of city council. Our commission already voted against having any dog parks. Council went ahead and just, voted to have 2 permanent dog parks. By trying to shift around the timing on these things, it's not helping them, okay? It's just having us making noise because we exist, in my opinion. And if we're trying to coordinate construction projects at the same time, if anyone's ever tried to do this commercially, yeah, have fun with that, okay? That's really difficult to do. And you're going to get change orders and it's just going to cost more. And what's the benefit? This is just a recommended schedule. And Casey, by the way, I know you care about this. Attachment 1 is spelled wrong. This is just staff recommended capital improvement 5-year plan. Okay. So they don't have to follow this. This is just something. And don't forget, city council's job is to do stuff for the city. By putting in a Shout Park playground, that is a very visible doing something for the city. Okay. If I was city council, I would like the citizens to understand that I'm trying to do something for the city instead of pushing stuff off. So that's just my opinion. All this is recommendation anyways. City council is going to do what they feel like is best. And we can recommend whatever, but it looks like they know what they want. And don't forget, we have recommended stuff in the past and they have ignored us, which is their right to do.
Okay. It looked like our council liaison briefly had his hand up. Councilmember Weinberg, did you want to offer any guidance here, or was that a fleeting thought?
Thank you, Chair. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I think that Commissioner Ye gave very good advice, and it was the same thing that I was planning to say. You guys put together the recommendations you want, and you guys put together the work plan that you want when you get to it. The less aligned that your CIP recommendations and your work plan is with the council's priorities, I think the less effective you risk the commission being. Take it for what it's worth, but the issues that you're debating are issues that the council has debated in the past, and the arguments that you've gotten, the public input that you've gotten is the same that the council has gotten. And I'm not saying that to discourage you from putting together the priorities that you want in the form of CIP and in your work plan. But the more out of line you are with where the council is, and to the extent that you start butting heads with other commissions, I think the more likely it is that council is going to start looking in other directions for additional guidance. So take that for what it's worth.
Thank you. All right, so let's do this. Let's have a quick straw poll on Commissioner Valadez's request to change the timing on the McKinsey Dog Park. Those who support Commissioner Valadez's request, raise your hand. Okay, so well-intentioned, but probably not enough support to make that change. Vice Chair Morris.
Quick question. So and this might be for Director Legge. So we have a public input on design for Hillview on phase 1 in year 1, and we have McKinsey Dog Park public process input on design in year 2. Would it save the city any significant amount of money to do both parks at the same time?
No, because it would cost double the first year, right?
Okay, thanks. That's all I just wanted to see if there was like a twofer. Okay, thanks.
Okay.
I
Yeah,
read-
and Teresa, just from a construction point of view, if you have one group of general contract with all the subs do one project, and then you have them do another one that's kind of the same, that's a lot better than having two people doing at the same time for the first time.
Yeah, there's actually economies of sequence as opposed to parallel, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Means
So,
you don't have the same people.
listen, that was a great idea, a great discussion. It doesn't appear that we have enough support behind it right now. Are there other items on staff's recommended CIP priorities that commissioners want to discuss? Okay, so hearing none, I'll bring the motion back for consideration. Casey, would you please read the motion, and then we can quickly discuss the motion.
Yes. Wait, Commissioner Valdez has a tentative hand going up and down.
Right now, I just want to hear the motion.
I
We're
meant
coming back to this
Commissioner Wayne.
motion.
Okay,
Then we'll have a discussion, then we'll call the question, okay?
Park supports the recommendation, or I'm sorry, nope, we took that out. Park recommends the adoption of staff's CIP
Priorities.
attachment 1, with a modification that Grant Park be prioritized and the electric panel be replaced to support a minimum amount of cooling, hot water, and heating, and the facilities condition assessment for Grant Park be pulled forward to year 1.
Okay. I do think that we probably need to strip out that last phrase about the facilities condition assessment. Quick straw poll. Anybody have any concerns about just cutting that statement off about the FCA? Because basically what we're saying is fix the panel, give us hot water, minimum cooling, and heat at that location. Okay. All right. So modify the motion, please, Casey, to strip off that last phrase. And now we'll have discussion of the motion. Vice Chair Morris.
one more thing. It's now says a minimal amount of cooling, hot water, and heating. I'd like to see it go to support the hot water, the heating, and minimal cooling. Otherwise, it sounds like we're saying minimal hot water, minimal, yeah. So everything would be minimal. That's not what we want.
How about replace the panel, provide hot water, and some cooling as appropriate?
Yep, and minimal cooling's fine. It was just the way it was worded. It sounds
Let's
like
leave the word minimal out. Let's just say
Okay.
as appropriate, right?
Okay, perfect. I'm fine.
Okay, now Commissioner Valadez, I think you had some more, okay. Commissioner Wang. You're on
I
mute.
just wanted to ask if the moving forward, the adult fitness project, is that dead, or is there still an opportunity to add that and pull that forward?
Well, we did a straw poll and we didn't see enough support to add that into our motion. I think it's a good idea. I think it was close to getting enough support. I can do another quick straw poll if you want to see if anybody's.
Mine? Yeah, do you want to do that?
Sure, sure. Would anybody like to add the fitness equipment at Hillview to our motion? Okay,
Okay,
all right.
thank you.
So if there's no more discussion on this motion, I'll go ahead and call the question. Those in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Looks like we have 4 out of 6. Okay, so that motion carries. Just for clarification, even though we only have 6 commissioners seated, we still have to get to that 4 number to carry a motion, but we did. So we're good. All right. Now, before we move to our next action item, which is going to be our work plan, let's take a 10-minute break, okay? All right. We'll be back here at 9:11.
Pete, earlier when I was talking but not talking to the commission, I was telling my husband that he couldn't use the microwave or it would kick me off the meeting and shut it off.
Okay. Are you, you know, are you at the Grant Park Senior Center right now?
We have a nice house, and I spent a lot of time talking to my IT guy about why I kept getting kicked off meetings. It turns out microwaves operate on the same frequency as most home routers.
2.4 gigahertz. Yep.
That's why you should use the 5 gigahertz band on a new router.
But you also need better shielding on your microwave. Good Lord.
Yeah. And be careful standing near that microwave with a pacemaker, please. All right, so it is time to reconvene. I'll wait just another moment so we can make sure that Director Legge is with us. And Director Hernandez should be somewhere. Gotcha. Okay. So the next item on our agenda is the work plan. And let me just ask if there's any public comment on our work plan before we go forward trying to reconcile what we want to do on our work plan. Casey, are there any members of the public that are looking to speak?
We do not have any hands raised at this time.
Okay. So Director Legge, did you want to facilitate this portion of the meeting?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Please do. Thank you.
So not to dwell on what was mentioned in the staff report, I think it is important to make note of work plan considerations. So I will just peruse through these fairly quickly. So a staff had provided our Recreation Department mission, the Recreation Department vision, the Recreation Department goals and objectives. I think it is important that there is a balance between recreation programs to park and facility maintenance projects, City Council retreat discussion, the proposed 5-year capital improvement program, impacts of COVID transitioning through change, the powers and duties of the Parks and Recreation Commission, and the role of the liaison, adding items to the future agenda, and subcommittees per the Commissioner Handbook. So with that, what I would like to do is share with you just a starting point of the discussion for the work plan. So by all means, there is flexibility and room for discussion by the commissioners as to what items they would like to accomplish within the next 12-month window. And for it to apply not only to the discussion we just had on the CIP, but also on items that staff feels where we need the most assistance in terms of reaching our goals within the Recreation and Community Services Department. So let me share with you the starting point. So, and I do want to also mention, there were 2 other items that we discussed at the last meeting, and one was Commissioner Ye brought up the movie night, which I think in the previous years before COVID, we held that movie night in October. It was a Halloween themed movie night. So there's open discussion about when you might want to do the movie night, if you want to do it at summertime, when it's light, it's kind of actually harder because it's light out later. but there is flexibility of when you can do the movie night. Staff just respectfully request that if you do an event like that, that there is as close to full participation as possible. And then the other item we talked about was assisting staff in evaluating our classes and programs. And what that might look like is we would give you some schedules of contract classes or programs that we offer, let's say day camp during the summer or yoga, you know, in the evenings at the community center. And we would ask that that the commissioners attend these events at their close and just ask them what they think of the classes and other classes that they would like to see. That's just one format. We're obviously open to other formats as well. So I'm just going to go through these. I'm sure you took the time to read them. Even though we had subcommittees established, I just felt like we should start over with a fresh new slate and see if there's other interest. We were hoping that we would have had another commissioner this evening, but that has been postponed to March 22nd, next Tuesday at the council meeting. So we won't know who our new commissioner might be until that point. So with that in mind, the goal is to increase park facilities and recreation program participation. And all the projects include community outreach, community events, keep in mind that we really want to expand and add new multicultural events. Performing arts, we expanded this because not only would we be interested in performing arts in our parks, but we would also like to see performing arts in our new community center. Naturescape ribbon cutting, we plan to see in the fall. Scholarship program, we are very much interested in offering families in our area scholarships so that they can participate in programs and services, mostly seniors and young children. Jedi Initiatives, looking at Jedi principles for recreation programs and services, and also sponsorship program. So as we go into the next year and we're able to do our concerts or our town green events in downtown, even our one-day special events, we think that there is opportunities not only for sponsorship, but also partnerships and collaboration. For example, the Bunny Bound event that we modified from our Easter egg hunt this year, we are partnering with the Friends of the Library. They donated funds to purchase all the goodies that we're putting together for the kids that day. So, and then the next category is in increasing park. Come on, it's slowing down. Do I have a microwave on? Okay, it's not working for me. But the next section is increasing park and facility participation. And here we go. Sorry. Okay, it's coming closer. So facilitating public process for capital improvement projects. So we have the Hillview Dog Park and the Shelp Park Playground. Based on the discussion that we just had, I'm going to write Grant Park here and fill in the rest later. Okay. So if there's any clarifying questions, I'd be happy to answer them. But this is just a starting point for the discussion.
So perhaps we could take a couple of slices of this. Let's focus first on the items that are going to be in the work plan. And then Director Legge, we should be penciling in who the subcommittees are as well, right? So it could be that we stick with the same groups that have already been established, or this is also an opportunity if you want to be on a different subcommittee, you want to work on something else, you want to, take yourself off of something you've been on previously, now's the time for us to do that. So from an organizational standpoint, gosh, I wish I had. First, let's ask if there's anything that is on this draft work plan that shouldn't be. Does anybody see anything here that is a red flag to them that they think shouldn't be in the work plan? Vice Chair Morris, did you want, yeah, you're lowering your hand. So
No, it wasn't that. It
You
was
didn't want to
it's a
respond to that, but something
No,
else, right?
there was a housekeeping piece that
Okay.
I don't think I heard, which was the goal of this work plan is that we have it be doable within a year. So as we're moving forward, to think about the fact that each and every one of these, they pounded this in my head finally, each and one of these individual things, we want to think of them as doable within a year. So as we discuss them, if we need to take them into little pieces, take them apart a little bit to have that be the conversation, that's what I was just gonna say. Let's do that.
Okay. I don't think we need to finish every one of these items within a year. We need to address them. Some things are multi-year items. Yeah. Think of all the years in the past when dog park was on the work plan. But let's intentionally try to keep this list practical for the next 12 months. Commissioner Corrigan.
Thank you, Chair Daly. And I was wondering, is it possible to propose an addition?
Yes, it is. I absolutely want to do that. I was just first taking the step of seeing if there's anything on here that somebody is particularly opposed to. And once we clear that out of the way, then let's start to see if there are things that we can add.
Thank you.
So I don't hear anybody identifying something. Oh, Commissioner Valadez.
I may, if I get a little more clarity, I'd like a little bit more description from Director Legge on the scholarship program. I didn't quite catch what the intent was.
So a scholarship program is a source of funding for those who cannot pay for recreation programs and services. And we would like to set up a program whereby a family, a senior citizen would complete an application process to receive funding. So in other words, their participation in programs would be subsidized by a program.
Okay, so like a financial aid type situation.
Exactly.
My question is in terms of Parks and Recreation Commission, is it because you would like a program designed around that action to make it attractive, or what? I'm having trouble figuring out what value add.
So you would work with staff and we would determine at subcommittee meetings with staff what the role of those particular commissioners might be, because we won't know until there's interest by a subcommittee member if they have a gift or experience or interest in doing a specific part of that program. So it could be talking to other cities and collecting information from them on how they do their program, what the criteria is by which the residents will receive the funding or partial funding. So there's a little bit of homework and research involved.
All right, thank you. Then I would not drop this. So now that I understand more. Okay.
Okay. So I think the things that we see here are probably going to make the final cut. There haven't been objections that have emerged yet, although that's still possible. So now let's perhaps go around the table, our virtual table, and give each commissioner an opportunity to bring forward something that that they don't see here that they would like to have added. And I will start with Commissioner Corrigan, because he already indicated he might have an inkling of something like that.
Thank you, Chair Daly. I would like to propose a program to gather community input, on our any initiatives we're creating, like a better way, a more valid way, like statistically valid way to gather community feedback on our proposals. Not everything, but sort of here's the process we could follow, because we always seem to have questions come about surveys were done while people question the surveys, and certain parts of the public have their own surveys. And so I want to propose a process, potentially working with the subcommittee and staff, to evaluate a way to do this better.
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Please, Director Legge.
To do what better?
My
Essentially market
interpretation,
research.
what Commissioner
Oh,
Corrigan-
market research.
Yeah.
Community
Let me see
research.
if I can reply to you, Commissioner Corrigan. And if I understand what you're saying, we'll sort of test it out that way. I hear you saying we should evaluate and potentially reform our process for community input.
Well said. Yes.
Okay.
We don't know what the reforms are, but we're just putting it on here as something, let's take a look at, you know. I like it. I like it. Times change, you know, we can't do things the way we always have. Otherwise we would be driving a horse and buggy to the meetings and so on. So, you know, who knows? Maybe the process will tell us we need to be on TikTok. I don't know, but I like having this. I like this. So let's do this. We need a majority of the commissioners present to add something to the work plan. So we'll just do it by straw poll. Those in favor of adding this item to the work plan, signify by raising your hand. Okay, we've got quite
That was
a bit of
unanimous.
support for that. That's good. All right, good one. Vice Chair Morris, how about you? Is there something that you think is attainable within 12 months that you'd like to see us take up?
I have a list, just kidding, but I do have a couple. So, yes, I support the movie night. Oh fudge, I wrote something down. I don't remember why I wrote it down. Okay, pop-ups. I'd like to see the commission do pop-ups. And when I say that, I mean plan events. And I'm thinking of things like a rock painting table. So a few of us, maybe 2 commissioners or 3 commissioners go, you know what, I have time this weekend and I want to set up a table and I want to put up the supplies and have people just be able, whatever park they're at, just be able to come and paint rocks. And they're in charge of setting the table up. Staff doesn't have to do anything. It's literally a pop-up in the park. We say we're with the Park and Rec Commission, and people can paint their little hearts out. Or another craft idea I had is like a little knit hanging that people do. Listen, I know these might not appeal to everybody right now, but these are just ideas I came up with. Little knit hanging or weaving. And so, we can set up the table. The commissioners would be in charge of having the kits available. Maybe we have to ask staff for some of that help, but having some probably more nature-based projects that we do. And again, staff wouldn't have to be there, but the commissioners would be in charge of this. We have hidden talents. We need to be bringing them out.
Okay. Straw poll on
Pop-ups.
taking up the issue of pop-ups. Okay, we'll put that in the work plan. By the way, I don't think that this means we're necessarily going to do pop-ups. It means we're going to agendize it, talk about it, and figure out what kind and when, and right? Is that
Okay, but I'm volunteering for the first 2.
awesome? Awesome. Thank you, Vice Chair. Other ideas that you have on your list?
No, I think that's it right now.
Okay.
Thanks.
Commissioner Wang, have you got some ideas for something you would like to see on our work plan that isn't?
No, because the one thing that I was championing is not part of the priorities for the immediate term. So no,
Mm, mm.
that's okay. There's lots here.
Okay, Commissioner Valadez?
If I could, before I get to my very short list, make a suggestion to Commissioner Wang. Wondering if you could pursue your love of adult fitness, but in a more portable way, maybe find a partnership or something, or kind of in the pop-up theme that Vice Chair Morris suggested, but perhaps come up with, an activity pop-up. That way you could pursue, and those of us that are aligned with you could pursue the passion, but not be part of the CIP. Just something to think about.
I'm sure that works. But yes, I will think about that.
For me, the scholarship program is intriguing to the extent that it might be very much aligned with Jedi things. So that's not an additional, that's just emphasizing the value. In terms of something new, I was actually thinking about not pop-ups, but I didn't think of that. That's a great word, Vice Chair Morris, but I just thought of more activities that are small scale that the city could sponsor in terms of, things like gardening and things like helping to, city beautification, garnering the youth and of all ages, across all ages, to do small beautification projects throughout the city. And, just as a way of increasing the investment, the kind of the pride that people have in, maybe they'd be less apt to have their doggies dig up the plants if they planted them themselves, that kind of thing around the city. So beautification was one of my ideas, small scale beautification.
Okay, so through the chair, I'm going to turn my video off because I think I'm having capacity issues with my Wi-Fi. So I am here and I will type in, but just FYI.
Okay. All right. So show of hands for small scale beautification projects. Is that a appropriate phraseology, Commissioner
Right.
Valdez? Okay. Okay, I don't think that's going to make it into the work plan at this juncture, but I like the idea, and maybe it makes it into an agenda at some point.
Could I ask a clarifying question on it?
Please.
So when I was thinking of pop-ups, I was thinking of ways to do things with little to no money so that we didn't have to worry about a CIP feature on this. And so I wondered with the small scale beautifications, if they're, if Commissioner Valadez could discuss how that would be fleshed out in a way. So how would we let the public know? Where would the funding come from? That sort of a thing, so that maybe we need more information on it. Or if the vote's been taken, you don't want to talk about it.
So that's a question about, implementation or which I don't think we're here to address tonight. We're here to address topics that we want to take up later on in this next work plan cycle.
Okay.
I could see this topic, by the way, coming back as a subset or a related discussion. It could be that, planting, spring planting pop-up, you could do, this might end up being a pop-up concept. So I certainly support that idea, but I think it just doesn't quite have enough support to be a work plan item in its own right. Okay. Commissioner Valadez, were there other ideas that you wanted to discuss?
No, I'm cool.
All
I
right,
think there's plenty on this chart.
okay. Commissioner Ye?
I mean, I'm looking at the work plan. There's a lot for us to do. I know when things pop up, we can always add to it. I know skate parks are on the back burner as from city council. Other than that, maybe just getting like helping out with getting our playgrounds kind of not upgraded, but just up to date would be helpful. I don't know if that falls on this work plan.
It does from a park to park project. So if we do SHALP, then we will update SHALP, right? So is that what you mean, Commissioner Ye?
Yeah. I mean, it's not that we're not doing it anyways. It's just kind of putting things on this work plan makes it more of a priority. And getting these things kind of up to date, it's not onerous, it's not time consuming, and our residents can see it, and their children can enjoy the newer attractions, which will draw more people to parks. You know, you take a water slide, it doesn't matter if it's any good or not. You stick a new one in a water park, you're going to get more people, at least for that first year.
So are you saying to do something different than to replace Shell Park?
No. I'm just saying, these are just points of emphasis on this work plan, anyways. And it's up to the chair and yourself to kind of figure out what we talk about month to month.
Okay, gotcha.
So yeah.
I think to Director Leahy's point, I think we're probably going to end up addressing this on a park by park basis. But I do think that there's a way we could maybe address it in a more holistic way, perhaps. I mean, perhaps we should have something agendized to talk about, the best practices in new park amenities and, come up, invite the public into the discussion about those things on a more general basis. I don't know. Is that more or less what you're thinking about in terms of how we put something on the work plan, or did you have something more specific in mind?
I don't have anything more specific. It's just, you're asking if there's anything. I don't really have much. This looks fine to me. I just want to add something.
Okay. So we characterize it as evaluation of best practices in park upgrades.
I'm fine with how the work plan is now.
Okay, all right. We'll leave it. We'll go ahead and move on from there. Are there any other commissioners that have things that they would like to add to the work plan before we start to assign subcommittees? Vice Chair Morris.
It's not that I want to add it, but I think the adult fitness is something that could fit on the work plan again this year, so that I understand tying it into CIP, but I think every year, if we work on getting details and kind of refining things that we want for the future, it wouldn't cost any money to come up with, say, specific pieces of equipment that would work, and sort of have an idea of what we would want if we're given the opportunity to install something. So I think for Commissioner Wang, if it's something that's, important to her, that it ought to be encouraged that she work on it, because in a year you could get a lot of information, about how it might be done, and it might be worth presenting it to us and having it ready, for the next time we discuss things, or the next time maybe we have a windfall of money that we get to play with. It's just an idea. I think if it's a passion, it's good to have it on there.
I agree. We don't know when there's going to be an opportunity to bring in some new fitness equipment. We do know that there's a need at Hillview. And that's, what is that, year 2 in our CIP recommendations? Year 3. Okay,
It's in 3, 4, and 5.
okay, okay.
I thought the guidance on kind of this was, the work plan should reflect what the priorities of staff are. And so working on something that's outside of priorities of staff, it doesn't make so much sense because, this staff is outlining what they want to see and where they need help. And I think that's where the commission is the most useful. I think that was like the guidance and the direction that I got from Director Legge.
I think that's true. It's not a hard and, it's not a, it's not set in stone that we can't put anything on the work plan that isn't, dovetailing with things that are in the CIP, but it's a sort of a general guideline. But I think if there's lots of support for continuing to look at fitness equipment amenities, then we can put it in our work plan, understanding that, it may be a lot of information gathering that doesn't get put to use until year 2 or 3. But I would defer to the will of the group on this. I think it's sort of in that gray area. I myself would support continuing to at least evaluate fitness equipment. Commissioner Ye?
Yeah, I was going to bring this up during the part where we talked about what happened to CPRS, but it could be helpful now. From Commissioner Wong's emphasis on or focus on the adult fitness, which is awesome, by the way. At CPRS, there was this breakout session about various city staff and kind of their issues based on different subjects. So, for example, events or alcohol or hiring or retention or whatever it was. But I was in one with people who were dealing with fields and workout type places. And the entire group, they cannot get anybody to show up in their fitness centers. And it's a drain on the city, and they want to shut them down. And they were trying to spitball, how do you close these down? Like they're gyms. Okay, we don't have one of these. All right. But that doesn't include the outdoor stuff. Okay. So in our city, I think that would be helpful, where it's just kind of, you're doing your walk or whatever it is, and then you see like a sit-up bench or something. That could be helpful. So I wouldn't mind seeing that. We did have those around various schools when I was a kid, that kind of older folks would just use throughout the day. But yeah, but I did want to point out that if we are going more of a formal thing, the consensus at CPRS was that nobody would show up, even when it was free.
So if I may,
Yes.
I think COVID has shut down or made it, a situation where a lot of people aren't using indoor gyms.
Sorry. This is like a 5-year issue.
Oh, 5 year. Okay.
Yeah.
So the adult fitness piece, again, what I was thinking is, even if it's on year 3, the plan 3 through 5, or even further out, it seems like there's work to be done. Like maybe visiting other cities, other locations, getting an idea of how it facilitates, how they lay it out, that kind of thing, who the best people are to work with. And then when you hit the ground, when it's finally on the plan, then you can go, okay, great, we're going to hit the ground running. We have some information. So that's one of the reasons why I was sort of saying, let's do it. And I would say, and Director Legge can correct me if I'm wrong, this was a starting point that they put together for us so that the conversation would get started. And it's what they, yes, what staff could use help with and would like to see us focus on, but we have the room and the freedom to add things to it. And it doesn't cost any money to prepare for what we want to do in the future.
Yeah, I think we can continue to, I personally support having this in the work plan. So let's have a show of hands for whether or not we want to keep ongoing evaluation of fitness equipment opportunities. All right. So that's enough support to put that in the work plan. And then we can continue to have a subcommittee working on it and maybe make a report to the commission at some point of the findings and so on. I mean, I think this is good. Okay. And that would be all I would, for my own suggestions, that's the only thing that I have to add. Are there any other commissioners who see something that needs to be added here? And again, as times change, as we move through this work plan, you know, this is a guiding document for our various meeting agendas. But we do have the latitude to agendize something and take it up that isn't necessarily on the work plan if it emerges as something that's urgent, that council wants us to deal with, or staff, or that we ourselves decide is critical. So don't feel like, you know, this is the last chance to bring an item up for consideration. Okay, so let's. I think that's good. I think we have a consensus on what should be on the work plan right now. Let's go ahead and go through these and put some names in these boxes for people who are going to work on this stuff. All right. The first one that is a subcommittee assignment is work with staff and partners to plan new multicultural events. So, as a reminder, our subcommittees can be up to 3 people. We do not want to have a majority or quorum on a subcommittee for Brown Act reasons. So are there people who would like to work on this item? Commissioner Wang, Commissioner Morris, anybody else? Okay. And you can add yourself to a subcommittee or take yourself off a subcommittee at a later date too. Again, this is also not set in stone, but it's a good guide for what we're trying to do. So the next one is performing arts in various parks and facilities. Vice Chair Morris. Okay. Scholarship program. Commissioner Valadez. I'd like to work with Commissioner Valadez on this too. Yeah. Okay. Anybody else interested in that one? All right. Jedi subcommittee. In the recent past, okay, we've got 2 returning champions to Jeopardy this week. All right, Commissioner Morris and Commissioner Valadez. Anybody else interested in the Jedi subcommittee? Okay, and sponsorship program, partnerships for summer concerts and events. This is almost a community development kind of role. You might have an opportunity to liaise with the Chamber of Commerce or the Downtown Village Association. Who wants to work on this one?
We had Commissioner Ye.
Okay. Great. You put my name on that one too, please. And this one, which we
Chair
have.
Daly, sorry.
Yes.
For the sponsorship program, I could see that somewhat working with performing arts sometimes, maybe.
Sure, yeah.
Like the 2 might kind of work together.
They can't,
Anyway,
they can't work together if there's more than 3, but they can.
so far there's only 3 total.
Right.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay. Evaluate market research. I think we said we were going to call this evaluate and potentially reform community outreach. Market research being one element, one tool of community outreach.
Evaluate market research and what? Sorry.
No, just evaluate and potentially reform community outreach.
Evaluate and conform.
Reform.
Oh, reform. Thank you. Community outreach. Okay,
Potentially reform.
okay,
Yeah, potentially.
okay. Potential. Something like that. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Commissioner Corrigan, are you gonna, nice. I think I'll, oh, we've got Vice Chair Morris. Does anybody else, let's put Vice Chair Morris on this. Does anybody else want to join this group, this subcommittee? Okay, I'll participate in this subcommittee as well.
Okay.
Pop-up activities.
I love this idea, by the way.
Yeah. Commissioner Morris, Commissioner Valadez. All right. What else do we have?
We have, did we discuss movie night? I have it written down, but I didn't see it on the list and I don't know that we talked about it.
Community events?
It was brought up at the last meeting and I use it as an example for this meeting, but no one
All right, quick show of hands. Who wants to add movie night to the work plan? All right, let's add movie night to the work plan.
As its own item,
Yeah,
not a community event.
yeah.
Okay.
This is as its own item. It gives it more oomph, like we're gonna do it, you know? All right, so we need
Stuff then,
to- Hmm?
should we add the Easter stuff then as its own thing?
Add what is its own thing?
It could movie night be a performing arts? Could be.
Could be. I'm okay either way.
It could also be multicultural if the movie's multicultural.
The thing is,
That would be every movie.
um,
I just think that we're stealing something from the community events subcommittee.
Well, we could ask who is that? The community events, Morrison Wang, we could add whoever wants to do the movie night.
You want to, should we include movie night in community events? Who wants to include movie night in community events? Okay, that makes it simple. Let's do that. Let's include movie night in community events. And there's still one open seat on that subcommittee, which is good because we're going to have a new commissioner joining our ranks pretty soon anyway. So we have opportunities for that person to to pick some pet projects. Commissioner Morris?
I'm not trying to push Commissioner Wang into anything, but I'd sure love her back on performing arts because we never really could do anything because of COVID. So I'm going to ask that she consider joining me there. And then I wanted to remind everybody that Director Legge had said that movie night was going to actually require everyone's participation, and everyone might be 4 or 5 of us, but hopefully people are on board enough that they're going to come and pitch in.
Yeah, to clarify, meaning at the actual event, not in planning.
Yes, exactly. And then if council member Weinberg is still on, I'm going to expect him to be there on movie night to help us because he was the pro on a lot of the stuff. So I'm already signing him up.
I'm there.
Okay.
All right. Do we have any other items that we need to assign subcommittee members for? Let's see.
Yeah, we have Hillview Dog Park and Shout Park.
Yeah, okay, I see. Hillview Dog Park, public process. Who wants to be on that subcommittee? We've got Vice Chair Morris, we've got Commissioner Corrigan, and we've got Commissioner Valadez.
Oops. Okay.
And Shout Park And Commissioner Corrigan, you should probably not be on this subcommittee, right? Right.
Right.
Okay. Commissioner Ye and Vice Chair Morris. And then, yes, Vice Chair Morris?
Yeah, so I was just gonna say, I feel like with the dog part, one of the reasons why I was like, yes, I want to do that, I'm already, I've worked on that so much with the dog park stuff, so I'm happy to jump in there. And I'm happy to jump off of things if the new person wants to go on. Shout Park, I sort of feel like that's going to overlap with the Jedi in some way, because I feel like we're going to have to work together. So, in order to do some of these ADA features, because we're going to have knowledge that maybe other commissioners won't have. So I don't know if how we might make that work. I'll stay on it for now and we'll see how it goes. But we may have to set it up where we discuss it, agendize it at a meeting or something, so we don't violate the Brown Act.
Right.
Okay.
Grant Park. Anybody else want to work with me on Grant Park? Vice Chair Morris and Commissioner Ye. Hey, it's a familiar group for Grant Park. All right.
Yeah, if the new commissioner wants to do that, I can jump up.
Okay, well, we'll see, right? We'll see. And then
Me too. I'm happy to do that.
Then fitness equipment. Yes, Commissioner Wang, and I will also volunteer for that one, even though I know I really didn't do very much on it in the last year. I still think it's a really awesome idea. All right. And then the last one is beautification projects.
Yeah, I don't think this got
No.
enough votes, but
Oh, it didn't. Okay. All right. All right.
I think there's
We'll
some.
do it as a pop-up.
Yeah, I
Beautification
think the
pop-up.
pop-up. I agree.
Right. Commissioner Valadez and I are on the pop-ups. We're going to make some stuff happen.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay. Can I get a motion to approve this work plan, please?
I move that we
Commissioner Wong.
accept the work plan as agreed upon by the commission.
Second.
I'm gonna go ahead and give that motion. I'm gonna give the motion to Commissioner Wong and give you the second. Okay,
okay.
Vice Chair?
Is there one thing missing, the helping evaluate classes that Director Legge mentioned?
Pardon me?
Director Legge had mentioned a line item, to help evaluate classes, attend and eval contract classes. That's what I wrote down.
Yeah.
That's another option. That was an idea.
Did we do a straw poll on that one? Or did it just fall off?
We didn't do, we can do a quick straw poll on that. Sure. Anybody in favor of adding that to the work plan?
I might be, Director Legge, can you give us a little more clarity? So I'm guessing it means show up at some of the classes. I don't know if participate in them or just observe them, and then do what?
So one idea would, so it's considered community engagement, right? So exactly that. We would give you a list of classes and programs and you could randomly go to them. And maybe it's part of the community engagement where everybody participates and we give everybody
right?
assignments.
There's nothing preventing any of us.
Right.
If you ask us to come to go to a class, there's nothing that prevents any of us from doing that. So let's leave it as, my
Community-
suggestion is to leave it as part of community engagement rather than assign a subcommittee for it, which is what happens if it goes onto the work plan. That way we're all potentially accountable for that.
So which is our community engagement goal? I don't see one. You mean community outreach?
Yeah, it's the very top one. Let me pull it up. It's the very first one. Community outreach, Parks and Rec Commission representation. Participation at city and community special events, farmers market. So I'll just change it to include classes. and
Yeah.
programs. Okay.
All right. So we have a motion and a second. We've had a little bit of discussion. Does anybody need to discuss this any further before we call the question? All right. All those in favor of approving the work plan signify by saying aye.
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 I have a unanimous vote.
Wonderful. Thank you. All right. Next, we're going to have staff reports. I need another 5-minute break. Too much hot tea for me tonight. So Casey, if you would set a 5-minute timer, I would appreciate that. Okay, so the next item on our agenda is an informational item, not an action item. And we're going to get a report on the California Park and Recreation Society conference highlights. Director Legge, is that you or who's gonna do this one?
Yeah, so there's 3 commissioners and 2 staff that are here that attended the conference. We had a total of 9 people representing the city of Los Altos, and it was very exciting because we had won an award for the design of the community center. So while at the conference, we staffed a booth with information about the community center and handed out brochures for a majority of the conference. So if Casey is interested, if she could highlight a couple of points about the conference. She was a first-time attendee. Casey, if you don't mind, just sharing.
No, I'd be happy to. I attended a number of workshops over the course of a couple of days, and I had really all great ones. I didn't have any that were subpar. I attended a couple about marketing and presentations, including presenting to council and commissions. That one was given by the new CPRS president. So it really, he talked a lot about methods of presentation and about formatting the presentation in a way that he has found over the course of his 25 years in the Parks and Rec field, that he has found to be best for presenting to those kind of government entities. I also staffed the table several different shifts with other staff members, and really enjoyed that. Got to talk to a lot of cities who are also in the process of renovating a center or are looking to renovate in the near future. We handed out a lot of facilities brochures. If you have been, or if you came to the grand opening, or if you've been to the center in the past few weeks, you probably have gotten one of those. We have a very nice brochure that has pictures and details of all of the rooms at the center. It's a very nice piece of marketing, and we gave out many, many of those. And then also we had several socials that both commissioners and staff members attended, and those were sponsored by various districts or regions. And I found those to be kind of fun networking opportunities. And also it just was great to be there. It was a really nice experience.
Thank you. So I myself, the 2 leading themes of the whole conference were Jedi, and the other one was the frustration and challenge of recruiting and retaining staff. So across the nation, there's a 40% decline in the youth workforce, and many agencies we were sharing can't even open their pools because they don't have enough lifeguards. And so they were talking about and brainstorming and sharing amongst each other ways to entice and attract young people to apply. And part of it is you could go to Taco Bell or Starbucks and get a job on the spot, but through the government process, it takes a long time to get fingerprinted and a background check, and we don't pay as much. And so they were talking about incentives, like if you want to be a lifeguard, you would offer all the WSI and Red Cross and all those classes for free instead of having to pay for that. Not doing drug tests. So I sat at a table with a gentleman from the city of Oakland, and that was that was the leading force in not being able to hire people because they didn't pass the drug tests. So these are real live challenges that we were discussing. Some positive notes is some agencies were finding it very successful to hire mature adults. They call them mature adults. So people that were retired or no longer working, like veterans. Those were good people for maintenance and facility jobs, as well as facility attendants. So another opportunity was to allow them to work more than 1,000 hours. We're restricted because otherwise it kicks them up into a different level of benefits and costs to the city. And a lot of people are waiving that 1,000 hours just to get staff. So those were mostly the highlights. One of the best sessions I went was on Friday, and it was talking about financial sustainability. And there was a very, very interesting concept looking at how we price out our programs, and it's individualized versus an individual benefit versus a group benefit, and whether or not you call it a cost recovery target, or you just are more transparent and just say that we subsidize these programs and these are the purpose for the programs, and also looking at existing providers. A really good example is 20 years ago when I worked for the city of Los Altos, we were in the business of licensed childcare. And that's because the school district had asked us to come and offer childcare on their campus in portables led by the city with city employees. Well, within, I don't know how many years that we operated that way, there were providers all over the place. And so we reassessed that was not the business that we were in, because we're recreation, we're not licensed. We don't, typically in the industry. And so we got out of the business, but we did a really smooth transition into new providers who are set up purposely focused on doing licensed childcare. And so those are the kinds of things they talked about, is looking and evaluating what you're doing and whether there are other people in the area that can do a better job because of economy of scale and the nature of being specialized versus filling in the gaps. So just a very, very big highlight. So Commissioner Wing, would you like to share with us your takeaways?
Sure. So I was only there for, kind of a day and a half, or 2 half days, maybe. And, my goal in going was, all around sort of outdoor fitness equipment, because, I knew that there's going to be, the companies that, manufacture that, exhibiting. And it was great because, there were 3 who were there, and I, spoke to all 3. Greenfield is, kind of the big player in the space. They were the main sponsor of the exhibit area. They had, a huge footprint right in the middle. But, some cool things that I learned is, that there's a lot of resources that these companies are willing to provide, from a consultation standpoint, from a render standpoint, from a planning standpoint, that's sort of all free, because they are used to kind of the process of working, with governments and cities to do these. And so they have a lot of resources. And so, from an education perspective, from, just like an augmenting resources and not having to pay for anything, they're happy to work with you. So, I thought that was a great resource. In fact, I already got an email from one of them. And what was really cool was just seeing the equipment, right? The new stuff, there's things that, like for instance, there's this one apparatus they had where you used your body weight, like to pull yourself up, and you're sitting in the chair, you use your body weight. Well, on the other side, there was a wheelchair part. So like in the same apparatus, there was the ADA part of it, that was just attached. And so, I spent a lot of time talking with them, and I thought that was, I was really interested. So I think it's promising, right? Those connections, and especially now that the research part of the fitness equipment is back on the work plan. I think we have some good partners. And then I attended a few sessions, and it was, around kind of the whole community outreach and community engagement. And I learned a new term, STP is a new term that I learned, which is, a lot of cities have the issue where, when they go out for just community outreach and getting, opinions, it's not often a broad population, in terms of numbers and representation of the community that participate. It's, often, just kind of very, very few. So STP stands for same team, same 10 people. And, every city has that challenge, right? Like they want more input, and how do you go out and get more input? How are you more inclusive in the forms of your outreach? And so there's lots of different tactics and strategies, to do that. And, sort of everyone is struggling with the same thing, right? Like how do you get, a broader, group, percentage of a community paying attention and participating and weighing in, so that the decisions that you make are more reflective of the community as a whole. So I thought that was really interesting, because it was, very similar challenges, across sort of people, but then also just touched upon in the different sessions I went to. So I thought it was really interesting, and I very much appreciated being able to spend the time, with Donna and Casey and Teresa. And Yang, I missed you. So we were ships passing. You left, I came. But thank you for the opportunity to go.
You're welcome. Thank you for the interest. Commissioner Ye?
Yeah, it was great going to the show. It was I go to the national one every year for different, not on behalf of our commission. But I attended in inclusive playgrounds talk, which was interesting. And then I went to kind of which I mentioned earlier, this kind of breakout session for different operators. It's unusual for the commissioners. Okay, Los Altos, I love how you guys invite us. It's great, but the show is not made for us. It's made for operators. So sometimes when you're at these breakout sessions or these more group interactions, we're just like kind of not necessary. Okay, it's like, how do you hire staff? How do you advance as a junior staff person at a city, or how do you change cities to get to a better city? Things like that, which is great for the attendees. I'm usually there as an exhibitor, so it's kind of nice to see it from the other side. And then I was able to attend one, which I think Teresa was at as well, about the different disabilities that people have when they encounter playgrounds. Because I usually just kind of think of people in wheelchairs, and that would suck for them to try to get over sand or whatever. But the person who was speaking went into all the different kinds, and granted, it's some of it seems challenging. I don't relate because I don't have them, but it was good to see. And then it was great to go to the events at night. It was in Sacramento, so take these events with a grain of salt. And it was downtown, but it was great. It was fun. A lot of crazy people. It was fun to watch at night and stuff like that. So I had a great time.
Okay, great. Thank you. And how about you, Miss Commissioner Vice Mayor Morris? Vice Chair.
Vice Chair.
Nice promotion.
That's there was a funny thing at one of the presentations about calling people community or reaching out to neighborhood mayors. So the people who are well known within their neighborhood that help move a conversation forward and help with outreach. So they called them community mayors, and I actually, or neighborhood mayors, I actually thought that was a nice term for it. I did attend a lot of the same talks, workshops, discussions, seminars, whatever you might want to call them. And one of them was my Shiro was there, and her name is Jill. She is in a wheelchair. I saw her speak last year virtually, and I found her so incredibly inspiring. And I felt like a groupie when I met her in person. I introduced myself, and I made sure that Director Legge met her. She actually works for the company that our playgrounds are well, they are all this by her company, and her specialty is, you know, getting more inclusive playgrounds in more communities, and they don't have to be really complicated. She just happens to be based out of Minnesota right now. Also, she's not a native, but so we talked about the fact that, which is where I came from, about how the playgrounds there are naturally inclusive. It isn't like, you know, you have to have these specialized playgrounds or everything. Every playground, like I've been saying, has a feature. I want to just do a couple quick things though before I go further. I really was sorry that Commissioner Valadez wasn't with me for this Jedi journey. And I'm hoping that if I do go next year, that we can do that together. And if not, that you are able to go. And I just want to say, I did find it worth it to go to it. I agree with Commissioner Ye. These seminars are geared more towards staff than they are towards commissioners, but there was value in attending and learning. And also a really quick note of appreciation for staff. They took very good care of us and made sure that we had what we needed. And Donna was very kind about, you know, including us in a lot of the socials and so on, and making sure that we were feeling welcome. So I appreciate that. I agree with Commissioner Wang. It was really fun and helpful to go see all of the equipment and try it. And Commissioner Valadez liked this one piece of equipment that is a push button thing. So it lights up and you push this button. And so Director Legge and I did it together. And so you could do 2 players or you can do single players. And when Commissioner Valadez first talked to me about it when we were looking at Jedi, so it was like, yeah, I don't like this technology stuff, you know, blah, blah, blah. I was being like, you know, really not great about it. But when I played it, oh my gosh, we need it in one of our parks. It was exhausting. And it was super fun because I'd be like, get out of my way with, you know, Director Legge, because she'd be like blocking my ability to, and, you know, to push the thing. And it's all done with no electricity. You crank this little crank. And once it stops making a noise, these little pads, circle pads, start to light up and you have to start hitting them. And so it's really great for hand-eye coordination. And it's fast and it's pretty exhausting. So that was super fun. We had a wonderful keynote speaker that closed it out. His name is Dr. Della Toro McNeil, and you guys will be able to find him online. He's very vivacious. I did say he does speak in bumper sticker a lot, like a lot of what he says kind of like, oh, that could go on a bumper sticker. But he's super fun, super energetic. I highly recommend checking him out. One of the main things that I'll say I took away from this conference was Park and Rec folks are super friendly. So I was sitting on my own at lunch one day because I went to lunch really late and I was just like, okay, I'm just going to shovel food in really quick. 2 guys from a place by Bakersfield said, may we sit with you? And they sat with me and we just chatted and I learned a lot from them. And so I really felt like it was a generous group of people. There are other people who I met that I'm going to reach out to and I'm going to get more information from for ideas for us. And it was inspiring for me. And I'm trying to think, I would like to put maybe a list together if I get to it about some resources for everybody and share them with you. And I am looking forward to incorporating some of what I've learned into the next year and moving forward. So that's it.
Thank you,
The-
Vice Chair Morris. I
The
think,
only other question I have, Donna, is I want to know if anyone attended the Frenemies
I did.
session about navigating relationships between commissions and staff.
Yes, I did. And I was looking for my notes, but there is only really one positive takeaway, and that was, here, I got my notes right here. So that was a panel of 3 commissioners from the city of Danville and their staff liaison, which was their director. And
Did you say Danville?
Danville, yeah.
Oh, I can imagine their commissioners being a dream.
So it wasn't anything like, you know, we didn't already know and experience, but I can't read my writing, but I think it was let staff do the legwork and let the commission do the advising. It's kind of something that came up earlier this evening, but it wasn't very helpful to me. I think it's good for people who don't work with commissions yet. Maybe like your recreation coordinators, people at lower levels that eventually want to become a liaison. It gives them a really fresh look at what that's like. I have to say that a whole session that we went to, myself and Mary Jo was there, and Commissioner Wang and Vice Chair Morris were there, and the table where Commissioner Wang and Vice Chair Morris were sitting at, they actually got up, recognized the 2 commissioners for coming to the conference, and just talked all about what great perspective the commissioners had. And I think it was very valuable. I think this is really not a typical year. I've been going to these conferences since the 80s, and there have usually been more sessions that are more related for commissioners. So this is kind of like a one-off. But I think that what I had heard from the commissioners is it gave them a new perspective about what the staff does do. So I think that was valuable as well. So thank you. And I hope different people get to go next year as well.
Okay, thanks. That's a wonderful report. Does anybody have any questions?
Does it make other people want to go? Yes, okay. By the way, all the sessions, we can gain access to the materials that was used, like the PowerPoints. So Commissioner Valadez, if you're interested, I can get those for you, any Jedi ones, and send it to you. Or if you let me know which sessions you're interested in, I can get those materials for you, or for anyone, by the way.
Thank you, thank you.
Okay.
All right, so the final item of business tonight is to address future agenda items. We will be doing the commission reorganization, so we can expect that on the agenda. We have actually already finalized the work plan. That's good. That's ahead of schedule. And the joint meeting with City Council will be on the, will be on the calendar for May 3rd. Now, are there other items that we would like to put on the agenda? And Director Legge, if you could, for this discussion, would you perhaps bring up the new work plan that we've just approved?
Sure. Oh, man. Okay. There we go. You see it?
Yep.
I have
All
a
right.
suggestion for an agenda,
Please, Commissioner Valadez.
which is wondered if the subcommittees could get together and by the next, put on the agenda each subcommittee, or as many as possible, or as many as want to, flesh out their kind of their scope and mission.
Well, we always do subcommittee reports, so let's do that though. Let's go ahead and put that down as a potential agenda item for, just call it subcommittee protocols. And we could kind of
You may
through
not have that.
discussion establish our go forward way of working together. Is that, Commissioner Valdez, does that work for you? Is that kind of what you had in mind?
What Vice Chair Morris and I did at the beginning of the Jedi, we, it was kind of like, it could be anything, but we said, okay, this is going to be our scope. And these are going to be kind of our general mission. It wasn't filled with goals yet or anything. It just basically outlined what we were going to be about. And I think that it was helpful, certainly for us, it was helpful to create a charter of what our committee was supposed to be doing.
I think that makes good sense. We just need one more commissioner to say they like that idea, and that's good enough to put it on the agenda.
By the
I
way,
support it.
Okay,
Sorry.
thanks, Vice Chair.
as a reminder, the commission did adopt a subcommittee guidelines, which basically is exactly what Commissioner Valadez said.
Yeah, we can
Establish-
just, we'll review that document and we'll, it does, just because something's on the agenda doesn't mean we need to take an hour discussing it. I like agenda items that can be handled quickly. Let's see. Performing arts. Yeah. Let's see, what do we need?
So technically, this is not your work plan till it's approved by council on May 3rd,
Right,
but you could work together up until then.
right. Well,
It helps to get a head start.
yeah. I think this item on community outreach might be one that we can bring up sooner rather than later, because the discussion is going to impact how we actually go forward on some of the other items. Anybody else interested in agendizing that for probably April?
If it's in terms of Chair Daly, in terms of scope and mission, I think that's reasonable for sure.
Okay.
Okay, let's do that. Let's if there's another commissioner that supports having that as an agenda item.
I do.
Okay, we've got two of us. We need one more. I'd like to see 3 commissioners. Thank you, Vice Chair Morris. May is pretty, May is what it is because we've got the joint meeting with council on May 3rd. So anybody have something they'd like to see on the agenda, perhaps in June? Pop-up activities, we want to start discussing that in June. How about that? Vice Chair Morris, you have your hand up.
I did have my hand up because I was just going to go back to what was said about we won't have this approved until city council looks at it and says yay or nay in May. And so we can get together as subcommittees, but I'm guessing they'll approve pretty much everything we put on here, but I just want to be a little I want to be respectful of people's time, but I would also like to see that we agendize, because I think we'll have a new commissioner next month. So I make sure we have a, meet and greet on that one, so that we get to know that new commissioner and they can, so introductions, that's what I was going to say.
Yeah, we usually
Right.
facilitate that. And I would suggest that the work plan come back on the agenda next time, because the new commissioner will put their names on the subcommittees and then it needs to be approved by everybody. So it'll just be 90% done.
All right.
Great.
right.
And then pop-ups, yeah, I think we have to meet and then talk about what we're gonna do and have a plan for them, and we'll be ready and maybe have a calendar. I'm kind of guessing we'll have a calendar of events that we'll do.
So you think that's appropriate for June? And if for some reason council strikes that from our work plan, we'll just adjust and
Yeah, I think we can brainstorm and maybe even be ready to tell you something by May at the latest. I mean, I know it's May 3rd, 4th, something like that for the city council. Our meeting's after that. So I'd say we have something to report in May,
okay. Okay,
providing Commissioner Valadez agrees with that.
sounds good. I'm supportive of that. That's probably enough. We can add things to the agenda. I will not be the chair in a month. So the new chair and Director Legge can always add things to the agenda as appropriate, as you know, things come up or council pushes something, staff pushes something, the sky falls and we have to do something. So
Chair Daly,
yes.
if I might, I know that the agenda format has changed, but this time is not only to look at the future agenda, but also get any announcements from fellow commissioners, subcommittee members, and then staff will also give an oral report.
Okay. Are there any announcements from commission members?
Okay.
Okay. Does staff have any announcements? Yes, please, Director Legge.
So we have been working on a reorganization in our department. And so effective in April, we have new staff liaisons. So Jamie will now be the staff liaison to the Senior Commission. And Mary Jo will now be the staff liaison to the Library Commission. I will remain liaison to Parks and Recreation Commission. However, at the April meeting, I was telling Chair Daly earlier that I'm going to be doing some very important research in Ireland on how to take a vacation. So I will be in Ireland for, I don't know, 10, 12 days. And so Jamie Chu, our recreation manager, will be attending this meeting and facilitating together with Casey Jensen Richardson. So I will work with her and prepare all the materials that are needed before I leave. So I will report back from my research at the May meeting. Also,
We need samples. Can you
samples of my vacation?
Yeah.
Okay.
need
Sure.
Details, we need details.
Guinness, Harp, Jameson?
Guinness. So also I will be sending you some flyers on upcoming events. They weren't available for this meeting. They'll probably be ready tomorrow because that's how it works. So we're getting into the season now and with COVID, you know, kind of going away a little bit, we're bringing back some of our events. We're planning summer camps this summer, so we're very excited about that. Our registration just opened, and so we're seeing people registering. We're seeing people rent our facilities. People are actually coming to the community center. Staff is working on possible contractors to open up the cafe. So we're excited about that as well. The pickleball courts are soon going to be painted. And then of course the dog park fencing is going up. So there's a lot going on right now and we're very excited about it. I think it's just going to be incremental. We'll feel just incremental improvements as we go, but it's very exciting. So that's all I have to report.
Wonderful. All right. With that, the meeting is adjourned at 10:40. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate all of you. Have a
Thank
great night.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.